us up like ants in a colony. Organize the wealth into a socialist economy. A way of life based off the common needs. And all my comrades is ready, we can spread the scene. And all my comrades is ready, we can spread the scene. And all my comrades is ready, we can spread the scene.
So let's get this underway.
That was a good combo.
Yeah, I always love hanging with Marcus.
It's like a Friday tradition. It doesn't feel right.
All right. It feels kind of weird if he's not here on Friday, even at least for like a little bit.
Fight until we destroy Hamas's military capabilities, end its rule in Gaza, and bring all our hostages home.
Since Hamas's attack on October the 7th, Israel has been laying waste to the Gaza Strip. Tens of thousands killed, and the Israeli government now accused of committing genocide. But what can the history of the conflict tell us about how we got here? My guest tonight is the famously provocative Israeli historian Benny Morris.
Dude, figure your shirt out, dude.
What's that?
Figure your shirt out.
Many of the crimes committed by Israel in 1948, but his critics say he now justifies those crimes. I'm Mehdi Hasan, and I'm here in London's legendary Free Speech Society, Conway Hall, to go head-to-head with Benny Morris. I'll challenge him on his support for the war on Gaza, and ask him why he thinks accusations of genocide are absurd.
This literally looks like my middle school gymnasium.
It's not very big.
No.
A former Israeli peace negotiator and president of the U.S. Middle East Project, Diana Boutou, the Palestinian lawyer and former advisor to the PLO, and Emmanuel Navon, an Israeli lecturer of diplomatic studies at Tel Aviv University. Benny Morris, thank you for joining me on Head to Head. You are a supporter, a defender of Israel's current war in Gaza, which began in its current form after the atrocities on October the 7th, and which has since killed more than 38,000 Palestinians, including 15,000 children, displaced more than 1 million people, made Gaza uninhabitable per the UN, and is being investigated as a possible genocide at the International Court of Justice. A lot of people around the world think it's a genocide. I happen to think it's a genocide, but you have called that accusation absurd. Why?
Well, quick, absurd is crazy. Like, it's one thing to be like, you know, the jury's out or something like that. Like, but like to say that it's absurd after everything that we've seen and the fact that it's even currently being deliberated at the ICJ is like just like denying reality. To say that it's absurd, it's like, you know, that this is being currently entertained, maybe not accepted, but at least being entertained in the highest court of the land. To say it's absurd is just to not live in reality. We are currently deliberating this in court.
Right.
If it was absurd, it wouldn't even have made it this far. We wouldn't even be at this point if it was completely absurd.
A real genocide by Muslim Turks against the Christian communities of Turkey around the year 1900. Some 2 million Christians were killed at the time by Muslim Turks. And that's what a genocide actually looks like. What's happening in Gaza is a war. It's a war in which there are a lot of collateral deaths among Gazans. The war started.
So, like, even to make a comparison between probably a very legitimate genocide, I don't know a lot about it, but probably a very legitimate genocide in the year 1900 versus what we understand as a genocide in 2024. Like, you have to understand, what you're describing is a pre-World War I, pre-World War II conflict of, like, of genocide. The 1948 Genocide Convention articles did not exist at this time. Like we have an entire different conception and, you know, it may sound strange, but more humane understanding of what war is post World War II. The dropping of atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki would today be considered an absolute abhorrent war crime today. But however, when they were dropped, these types of things didn't exist. International law was not something that was institutionalized at that point. So, like, even bringing up in my opinion, bringing up anything that exists prior to 1948 or prior to 1945, prior to World War II, is really a moot point in trying to discuss, like, to ascertain what is a genocide or what is a war crime today.
Right. Like he easily could have compared it to like the Rohingya. He could have easily compared it to.
This is what we should be talking about. We should be talking about. It starts with an R. Not Rohingya. What's the one in Africa? It's in 1991. It's one of the most.
Shit.
Is my brain broken? Rwanda. Thank you.
Rwanda, yes.
Thank you, everybody. I apologize for not being able to think about that. This is the things, and we should be talking about Srebrenica, or the situation that happens between the Serbs and the Croatia. That should be the number
one. We could easily talk about Yugoslavia. We could easily talk about
number one, because that's the one that the ICJ has actually determined was in fact a genocide. Right. That's what we should be using Rohingya, Rwanda, as well as everything that happened in Yugoslavia as what we're doing. We should not be going back to 1900, because that's the other thing too. People are like, this isn't a genocide. The genocide is what the Nazis did. And it's like, yeah, it was what the Nazis did of a greater scale and intensity than what's currently happening. Of course, nobody is denying that. But the benchmark is a little bit different. We have a little bit more of a structured way of understanding how these conflicts go on.
Of course, by the Hamas from Gaza in a giant massacre on October 7th. And the only way to respond to that, and any country would have responded to that, more or less in the same fashion, I think, was to try and go after the Hamas. But the Hamas...
The amount of knowledge in your brains that you have to sort through leaves no reason to apologize.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Ree.
Was embedded in the population, as you know. Used the schools, the UNRWA schools, the hospitals as bases, as places where they stocked their ammunition, their guns themselves, hid in tunnels underneath these schools, in apartment buildings, and this all involved collateral damage, which of course the Hamas knew it was going to ignite by killing 1,200 Israelis on the...
Pause it real quick. I hate to say this too, but this whole like concept of like the human shields and that Hamas embeds itself within like civilian structures, etc. Well, I'll acknowledge that that's true. Human rights reports say, and Amnesty International reports pretty much say as much. However, this is of a much different context when you are literally not allowed to have a standing army.
Right.
Gaza is not a state. It is not allowed to have an army. It is not allowed to have its own political functions. It's not like they can just have a military base where they're training an army that can defend itself at any point. Literally, Israel has made it illegal for Gaza to have any kind of a formal defense force. There is no choice other than to have a guerrilla organization that does operate within civilian territories, because there is no other option.
Guerrilla.
There is no other option to defend itself.
Right.
That is the only option that it has.
Whereas Israel does not have to put its military inside of large population centers. I don't understand that point at all. Do they want Hamas to do World War I trench warfare? Even if they did that, it really wouldn't.
Well, and also on the human shield things, Baldwin Go says, I think the human shield thing is pretty silly. If you were to follow Amnesty International, it depends on what our definition of human shield is. On one sense, human shield can mean embedding yourself within the civilian population, meaning you might be in an apartment building or et cetera, operating alongside civilians. Some people call that human shields. If that's the case, Israel and Hamas are equally as guilty. However, if we're talking about the forcible movement of civilians for the purpose of protection, Israel is worse by a mile. No Hamas has ever strapped an Israeli civilian to the hood of a Jeep and driven through the fucking town. Israel has done this. Israel literally puts their gun over the shoulder of a prisoner of war and walks them through the town. Hamas, according to Amnesty International, Hamas does not do this. Do they operate within civilian areas? Yes. Have they ever? Do they actually coerce and move people? No.
I myself have problems with the war as it's being waged, but genocide it definitely isn't. The aim here is not
definitely. That's what fucks me up.
Was it?
The fact that he's so confident in saying definitely, like as if this isn't being entertained and investigated by the highest court in the world. Like to just say definitely just seems so. The smugness, the hubris of it is so off-putting.
Yeah.
Not the definition of genocide.
It's one of
exactly. I said exactly, Genki. What Genki just said there is
They're
exactly
fenced to
right.
an area that is 90% civilian areas and not allowed to leave. And even when
Not
they
only
are
are
moving
they-
within those areas, there are checkpoints. And even if there are not checkpoints, there are random searches, seizures. There's random, patrols.
What do you think would happen if Hamas decided to go out away from the civilian areas and start building up a military base?
Right.
Or training a standing army? What do you think would happen?
Israel would immediately have like a military operation.
Yeah, exactly. They would bomb the shit out of it.
No question.
And that's the problem, is that Hamas is very often held to the standard of a nation, of a state. You know what I mean? Like when we talk about the issue, they're like, well, Hamas did this, and it's like, yeah, but you're holding them to the standard that you would a state that is allowed to have its own diplomatic operations, to have its own army, to have its own police force, to have its own autonomy. That is not what Gaza is.
Right.
So holding it to that standard is ridiculous.
Right.
That's not the definition of genocide.
It's one of the definitions.
It's not.
Try and kill.
It's one of them.
Numbers.
What?
It's just him. Yeah, it's one of them. It's one of them.
Definition
It's
of
also
genocide.
based on intent and on
Yes,
numbers.
it's
yes.
based on the intent.
Yes, there's
to
no-
destroy, to
Numbers
kill.
has nothing. Numbers has absolutely nothing to do with it. There is not a number threshold of genocide. It is not like, well, if it's not a genocide until you hit 100,000, you can do literally whatever you want, and then 100,000. Like there is no number. There is no number equation for this.
And
Go ahead.
for him to say that, like, well, yes, there's also intent. Like, you say that as if, like, there's kind. It's like, dude, there's nothing but intent plastered all over the nightly news every night throughout Israel. What are you even saying?
That's the thing, is like people always say this, where it's like, oh, it's about intent, and it's like, well, what about when Ben Gvir says this, and what about when Smotrich
Right.
says this, and what about when Netanyahu says this, and
Bro,
what about
you
when
have,
all
like,
these
pundit
people-
talking heads like on the fucking news every night being like, I can't sleep unless I know that there's been a bombing.
Oh, I literally can't sleep unless I hear the sound of bombs on Gaza. Exactly. That was literally a news reporter that said that. So it's like, what do you mean, like intent? Like, why can't you find it? It seems like they oscillate between intent and numbers, and it's like they're like, oh, if Israel wanted to, they would just exterminate all of Gaza. And it's like, you don't think they might be a little bit more tactful with the degree of baked-in plausible deniability? They could very easily be that strategic.
Even
in
if you
2024.
wanted to make that argument, like, okay, what number? What's the number then?
Yeah, what number do we need? And not only that, you have to think about it in proportion. There's only 2 million people that live in Gaza.
Right.
It's not like a whole nation with 10 million people in it.
In whole or in part.
There's no intent here.
Okay, pause it. I'm sorry. That is a great point. Throws the bananas. Only 8,000 people. Only 8,000 Bosnians died in what was considered a genocide by the ICJ. Numbers was not an issue there. That is 1,000% correct, and that's at a great point.
Meanwhile, there's been
wish
how many children alone?
Probably around 8,000, if not way more, to be honest. If not a lot more than 8,000 within Gaza. Good point, Johnny, as well.
I just want to
I'm not a government spokesman. You seem to be
I'm not-
presenting me as a government
How did I-
spokesman.
No, you should be
You're gonna go-
better than a government spokesman. You're like literally a historian that's been writing about this for 40 years at this point. Like your first book came out in like 1986 or 87 or some shit like that. You should be light years past a government spokesperson, and you're fucking it up.
Sounds like it.
I asked you for your view on the war. I didn't say anything. We'll come to the government. I'm just asking about your view right now. The definition of genocide, you wrote a book on it, is nothing to do with how many people you kill. So it's not a numbers game.
It's also a numbers game.
The ICC
not.
chief prosecutor has asked for a...
Pause it real quick, dude. I'm sorry to make you keep pausing it. I challenge anyone, go read the 1948 Genocide Convention and read the articles of it. At no point does it say that there's some kind of number threshold that you achieve. It has nothing to do with that.
Hamas leaders, but for the Israeli Prime Minister and the Defense Minister for war crimes and crimes against humanity. And he says he has mountains of evidence. We've all seen with our own eyes the Israelis in Gaza commit war crimes on camera, kill unarmed people who are carrying white flags, blow up apartment buildings, drop 2,000-pound bombs on crowded refugee camps. Can we at least agree, Benny, even if we're going to disagree on genocide, that Israel has committed numerous war crimes since the Hamas war crimes on October the 7th?
I'm fairly sure there have been war crimes, but the war itself is not a war war crime, as the Hamas attack on Israel on the 7th of October was. It was a war crime from beginning to end. The aim was to kill as many civilians as possible, which they did, in accordance with the Hamas charter, which is to kill basically every Jew you can.
Okay, but that charter is outdated, and there's even been...
It's been revised. It's been revised.
It's been revised.
Do you remember that thing? God, it's going to take me a second to bring it up. But do you remember? It's like
the link where like Hamas has been more than willing to acquiesce and open up to any sort of investigation that any a third party body wants to work with them on. It's also stated that Hamas has been more willing to work with the Israeli government than the other way around.
So, I'm sorry, this is it right here. Johnny, can you just pull this up real quick? Because I just want to show everyone that I'm not just pulling this out of my ass. I'm not just trying to run cover for Hamas or anything like that. This is a report done by the United States Institute for Peace. So, we can bring up the Hamas charter. And
this could be the United States Institute for Hamas.
Or Hamas,
we don't know. All right.
If you want to say that the original Hamas charter had anti-Semitic elements to it, I will agree with you. I won't even try to argue that. Johnny, you just have to scroll down to the summary. There's a summary point with bullet points. Exactly. So let's see what this says. Anyway, actually, just scroll back to the top real quick. I just want to show everybody the source for this. This is the United States Institute of Peace special report. This is done by the United States, by the way. So go down as well. I just want to show everybody where this is coming from. Summary. Although peaceful coexistence between Israel and Hamas is clearly not possible under the formulations that comprise Hamas's 1988 charter, Hamas, in practice, moved well beyond its charter. Indeed, Hamas has been carefully and consciously adjusting its political program for years and has sent repeated signals that it may be ready to begin a process of coexisting with Israel. As evidenced by numerous statements, Hamas is not hostile to Jews because of religion. Rather, Hamas's view toward Israel is based on a fundamental belief that Israel has occupied land that is inherently Palestinian and Islamic. You can go through and read the rest of this, but this is just talking about the political evolution of Hamas and that it's not just merely this blindly anti-Semitic kill every Jew type of organization. There's been a lot of evolution, just like with any governmental organization. But that's it. That's all I wanted to bring up.
Right.
Just to add a little bit of credence against what Benny Morris is saying here.
Get hold of in Palestine.
But I didn't ask about the aim. I asked about the acts that are being committed.
As I said, probably there have been, as in all wars, war crimes.
You accept there have been war crimes?
Yes.
So you would support an arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu?
I didn't say that.
Why?
Firstly, there hasn't been an arrest warrant.
I know, a request from the ICC chief prosecutor.
So far, they haven't issued it. I don't know if you can hold a prime minister responsible if a sergeant kills several unarmed people intentionally.
You don't think the Israeli Air Force bombing apartment buildings, refugee camps, mosques, cemeteries, hospitals, schools, universities, libraries?
Firstly, it hasn't bombed, as far as I know, hospitals.
Dude.
Moment, how many hospitals has Israel destroyed in Gaza on October 15th?
All of them.
WHO data showed that there had been 48 reported attacks on healthcare facilities in the Gaza Strip, resulting in damage to approximately 24 hospitals and healthcare facilities, including 6 hospitals.
There are snipers.
There's actually an
shooting into hospitals.
There is a Wikipedia page for attacks on health facilities during the Israel-Hamas war, and I'll give you a hint here. How many hospitals in Israel do you think have been attacked by Hamas? Because this is kind of framing it as a binary. Attacks on health facilities during the war, I guarantee you,
as if it's been an equal-sided thing.
It's 100% on one side of this situation. But I'm saying it has its own Wikipedia page to talk about attacks on healthcare facilities.
Right. Because
and as a historian, I don't know how Benny Morris isn't keeping up with this.
Have attacked.
I'm sorry, Johnny. Were you going to say something, dude? I'm sorry.
What's that?
Were you about to say something? I'm sorry. I was just saying.
Nah, don't worry about it.
All right. I'm sorry.
As far as I know, hospitals. They have attacked.
Just laughing.
You had to know that reaction was going to happen. I'm sorry. The amount of cognitive dissonance that you have to be suffering from in order to say that there's no evidence of Israel attacking hospitals.
He said that I know of. He added. He's like, I don't know, maybe.
literally no expert agrees with you on that.
That's not true. What you're saying is not true. The only hospital which I remember being bombed was by a rocket fired by the Islamic Jihad by mistake.
That was...
Dude ain't buying. That dude ain't buying.
That was like honestly, 7 months ago, Benny.
But not only that, that's still up in the air, I believe, right?
Was that honestly, like that's not even confirmed that like it was.
Was that Al Shifa? Wait, which hospital was it, or was that Al? No, Al Shifa is the one where they claim that they found the military base under it. Oh,
right.
God, what hospital?
No, I think it was Al Shifa, wasn't it?
Was it? Hold on.
Hollywood Code says, I think it was Al-Alhi.
Al-Alhi, yeah. Hold on. Yeah.
So has it been confirmed?
On October 17th, an explosion at Al-Ali Arab Hospital in Gaza killed at least 100 people. Hamas blamed Israel. Israel, backed by the United States, denied culpability. Israel said the source of the munition was a militant group operating in Gaza. Okay, so this is from Wikipedia. The consensus from various independent studies of videos, images, and eyewitness reports of the explosion, its aftermath, and the blast area suggests that the errant rocket launch from within Gaza is the most probable cause. Okay, so that's what Wikipedia says. So maybe it was. I don't want to contradict it based on the information that I'm reading here. So, but I do believe it's still a matter of investigation. Like they said, that is the most probable cause, but no one actually knows what caused this.
Right.
I remember.
But even if we grant that one was, there's like 40 other ones that have been bombed by this point in the war. Like, so that one should just be moot. Even if we want to steelman that it was an accidental misfire. Yeah.
Hospitals.
So let me
talk. Israel has raided hospitals, but with infantry.
Let me ask you this question.
Found Hamas people in there, Hamas headquarters inside hospitals, under hospitals.
Actually, we've never seen the headquarters that Benjamin Netanyahu put a beautiful Bond movie video out for. We've never actually seen that from underneath Al Shifa. It's been several months. We're still waiting for that. So on the 31st of October, according to Human Rights Watch, Israeli forces unlawfully attacked a 6-story residential building, killing 106 civilians, including 54 children, without warning. 4 strikes, completely demolished. Human Rights Watch found no evidence of a military target in the vicinity, making the strike unlawful, indiscriminate under the laws of war. Israeli authorities have provided no justification for the attack.
The Hamas always hides their own casualties.
Even the Israelis didn't say that they were hiding in the apartment building. You said you don't want to be a spokesman for the government. You're offering a better defense of the government than the government is.
I don't know. I don't know the particulars of that particular attack. It could be that there was a war crime committed there. It could also be that there were hundreds of Hamas fighters in the building alongside. It could be Okay, so have you ever seen footage? Have you ever seen footage?
I like how it's a lot of could be. There could be. So it's like you're just postulating. Your only response to like what Mehdi is telling you is postulating.
Out of the Gaza Strip, which shows a Hamas fighter dead. Have you ever seen that?
How much?
All you see is civilians.
Benny,
because they're hiding. They're hiding.
I'm not a Palestinian journalist. I'm a foreign journalist. And guess what? We're not allowed in by the Israelis.
They are hiding their casualties.
So let me ask you this question. So then, I agree we should allow people in. Do you agree with me?
I agree with you. Let me tell you something about the Israeli Air Force, if we're talking about this. Each mission of this...
Pretty sure he served in the Air Force.
I'm
pretty sure he served in the Air Force. Let me just double check that.
Benny?
Yeah, did you know we just said, let me tell you something about the Israeli Air Force? Let me just double check that. I'm pretty sure Benny Morris Air Force. Moment.
Just a moment.
Be wrong.
Benny can't defend on the merits or the facts, so he has to fight with hypotheticals. Exactly.
Okay, yeah. Air Force Office of Special Investigations is what he was part of.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Mm-hmm.
The most accurate and efficient arm of the Israeli military is checked beforehand by a lawyer, etc., to see if there actual is there evidence, evidence of.
I'm so glad
Hamas
you're pointing this out because it's not a rogue operation. It goes all the way up. See, we can indict Netanyahu for these attacks because it's gone up the chain of command. It's not a rogue sergeant.
No.
It's not a rogue sergeant. We agree. All right. You say it's not genocide. Can we at least agree that it's genocidal rhetoric and genocidal intent from various members of the Israeli government?
Yes.
Can we agree that the rhetoric from Netanyahu and Herzog and Smotrich, this is genocidal rhetoric?
Some of the ministers, I'm not sure about Herzog's quotes, and I'm not sure about what Netanyahu said, that some of the
Netanyahu
ministers
said Amalek, Benny. You know what
used the word
Amalek
Amalek.
means.
I don't know if that's the same as genocide, but
Killing every man, woman, and child,
I don't know.
and the donkeys.
Listen, there's something absurd about this line of questioning. If Israel was intent on genocide, would you let me talk?
Hold on. Can you let him speak?
Would you let me talk?
Can you let him speak? Yes. Guys.
I honestly don't know why they did it in this tiny fucking place. I don't even know why even have an audience for this.
Anybody, you could probably just speak at like regular speaking voice, and the entire room can hear you. If you were just like, I don't believe that. Actually, everyone in the room would be like,
right. Like if you're up there trying to like, sneak a silent but deadly, like they're gonna hear it. You're probably gonna smell it. Like there's just like, it doesn't make any sense, but whatever.
Guys, we are going to have to stop the entire show, and you will all have to go home if we do not have some order. Benny, please finish your point.
If there was genocidal intent in the war making in Gaza, there would be not 30,000. Incidentally, the numbers are all issued by Hamas. We don't know how true they are. But if there was,
I'm sorry, I have to say. First of all, this idea that the numbers are all issued by Hamas. First of all, it has been like multiple time verified over like the past 20 years that everything that is issued by the Gaza Health Ministry is just about in line with the IDF's own understanding of casualties. Like this has been verified by third parties. It is like to even use this is just so ridiculous at this point. Secondly, I've already talked about there can be a tactful understanding of genocide with a baked-in plausible deniability. It doesn't, probably gone even in Yugoslavia against the Bosnians, they had baked-in plausible deniabilities about why this needed to happen and how it was all necessary. Like gone are the days of just going through and just executing people en masse because they know that it would never fly in the international community. To think that they're just tactfully carrying out an ethnic cleansing or a genocide is not outside of the realm of possibilities.
Intent by the Israeli government with the Israeli military machine to commit genocide in Gaza, there would not be 30,000 or 20,000 Gazans dead. There would be hundreds of thousands of Gazans dead.
I'm sure.
That is called genocide, and that's not what's happening in Gaza.
Benny, we've already discussed that's not the definition of genocide. But okay, let me ask you this.
That's not your definition.
No, it's the 1948 Genocide Convention.
There's lots of different.
Forget it. Forget the 1948 Genocide Convention.
There are lots of definitions.
That's not true, Benny. There's only one. There's only one. It's the 1948 Genocide Convention.
That sounds dogmatic. There's only one. There's only one truth, the Hamas truth.
What?
There you go.
What does that even mean?
It means that the 1948 Genocide Charter is actually a Hamas.
It's fucking Hamas by like fucking 50 years?
Probably 40, but yes.
What?
Yeah, this is just like brain broken, like high intensities of brain brokenness.
What the fuck is the matter with him? Like, what?
Just take it back 5 seconds. I just want to hear the whole interaction again.
No, it's the 1948 Genocide Convention.
There's lots of different.
Forget it. Forget the 1948 Genocide Convention.
There are lots of definitions.
That's not true, Benny. There's only one. There's only one. It's the 1948 Genocide Convention.
That sounds dogmatic. There's only one. There's only one truth, the Hamas truth. Sound the same.
Is the 1948 Genocide Convention a Hamas charter? Is everything Hamas, Benny?
If there's a genocidal side in this battle, it is the Hamas.
Okay, let me ask you this.
Just look at its charter, read the words there, read what it says about
By the way, Benny,
what they intend to do to the Jews.
Benny,
that's what is important.
I've interviewed people from Hamas and I've asked them about the charter. I'm interviewing you right now, and I want to ask you.
It's a nice document.
I'm sure they do. Israeli minister called Avi Dikter, member of the Security Cabinet, he said we're now rolling out the Gaza Nakba. He was referring to the Nakba, the catastrophe of 1948, when an estimated 700,000 Palestinians were driven from their homes. You famously documented a lot of that back in the 80s. You undermined a lot of Israeli propaganda that said they just fled on their own. So whether it's the 1948 Nakba Nakba, or the 2024 Gaza Nakba, to quote Avi Dikter. For Palestinians, Zionism is Nakba. It is ethnic cleansing. Surely you, of all people, can recognize that.
I'm not sure I can recognize that, no. Yeah, you keep putting words in my mouth. Zionism's intent was to establish a Jewish state in the area called Palestine, the land of Israel. Initially, the Zionists...
Whoa. I thought that Palestine never existed.
Right, exactly.
So which is it?
As if it wasn't being referred to that since like the Roman age.
Right.
To establish a Jewish state on the whole land of Israel, or all of Palestine. 1937, 1938, Zionism changed and said, we can't have all of the land. There are lots of Palestinians here. Let's share it with the Palestinians. In 1937, the British Peel Commission proposed the partition of Palestine between the two peoples living in it. The Palestinians said no and continued their war against Britain and the Zionists. The Zionists said yes to the partition proposal by Peel. The international community repeated the idea of the partition of Palestine between the Jews and the Arabs in 1947, November, the famous Resolution 181. The Jews said yes to the UN partition resolution of 1947, accepting it. They would get some of Palestine, the Palestinian Arabs would get the other part, and the Palestinians said no and started shooting the next day, killing Jews.
So this is one of the reasons I wanted to interview you, because
I know some of the history.
You do know some of the history, and you said they all share, but the problem is, I don't know which Benny Morris I'm speaking to, because you're saying they all wanted to share the land, and yet I have a book here that says, on the most basic level,
pause it real quick.
Colonization.
The book he's holding is Righteous Victims by Benny Morris. I have the book. He's literally holding a copy of Benny Morris's book.
The land, and yet I have a book here that says, on the most basic level, Jewish colonization meant expropriation and displacement. Zionist ideology and practice were necessarily and elementally expansionist. Zionism was a colonizing and expansionist ideology. That's Righteous Victims by Benny Morris.
I know. And
you can respond.
I'm glad that the audience is cheering things I've written.
Because you were right in
Because you were right. This is correct. And now for some reason you just can't like rectify this. I didn't walk in
angry about what happened to 2024.
And I agree with every word in there. But as I said, Zionism changed its objective and goal in the 1930s and agreed reluctantly, resigned to the idea of partitioning the land. And from that point on, the Zionists, a number of times in 37, 47, the year 2008, proposed partitioning Palestine with the Palestinians, and the Palestinians consistently have rejected partition under the Hamas Palestinians and under the PLO Fatah as well. They always rejected partition.
Let me ask you this.
That's the truth, the basic truth of the conflict. Zionists
hold on, Benny, let me ask you a question.
Zionists willing to compromise, and the Palestinians always say no.
Benny,
yes, go ahead.
I want to read a quote out to you.
Yes.
You keep saying lots of positive stuff today, sharing, dividing. I want to read a quote to you. There are circumstances in history that justify ethnic cleansing.
Yes.
That is not a quote from Slobodan Milosevic.
Yes.
That is not a quote from a Rwandan genocide.
It's
your quote.
Yeah.
And a lot of your critics say you no longer just document ethnic cleansing, you apologize for it as well.
What's the context of what I quote? What you're
the context is you're asked, do you condemn what they did in 1948, Zionist militias? You say no. You're asked, they perpetrated ethnic cleansing. You say there are circumstances in history that justify.
Johnny, can you pull up the picture I just sent you, please?
Yeah.
So I never said I owned the physical copy of the book. However, I do own it on Kindle. Johnny, if you would. This is for Sam. This is my Kindle book collection, by the way. That's how I was able to recognize the exact book he was holding in his hand by the cover, because I have it right there on Kindle. What, are you going to go through all my books now?
Yeah.
You think that's appropriate?
Probably not.
No, it's fine. I have nothing.
You say I know.
It's like all of them are history books.
They're all just history books. I don't have any kind of like weird, like hidden book that I would be ashamed of. But yeah, that's like
curve.
I don't. A bunch of racist kids. I don't like using my Kindle. I prefer having a physical copy of the book. But those are just ones that I needed for convenience sake. Yeah. And honestly, I don't really care as much about owning a Benny Morris book as much as having it on my Kindle for research purposes.
Yeah.
I read Playboy for the articles.
This term
What's
is
the
I'm
circumstance?
reading a quote. I know that this term is completely negative, but
What's
when the
the
choice is between
circumstance?
ethnic cleansing and genocide,
Yes.
the annihilation of your people, I prefer
Yes.
ethnic cleansing.
So the Jews understood in 48, the Jews were under threat of annihilation by the Arabs, and that, in my view, legitimized, justified cleansing Arabs from Palestine. The Jews were threatened with...
Homie in the yarmulke was like, what the fuck, dude?
Even he's like, nah,
Yeah,
man, that's a tough
Homie in
sell.
the yarmulke is like, Jesus fucking Christ, man.
genocide after the Nazi
Benny,
genocide.
The Hutus said exactly the same thing about the
They were
Tutsis in 1994.
They were talking about the Zionists.
No, they said we can ethnically cleanse and kill these people because they're threatening us.
No,
right?
I didn't say
Everybody who's
threatening.
ever
I
done
didn't
bad
say-
things says we're doing it defensively, right?
I didn't say threatening. I said
Even Hitler.
Palestine.
If you asked Hitler in 1933 what was going on with Jewish people and Slavic people and things like that, he
They're
would be like,
threatening us.
exactly, we're being fucking invaded. They're threatening to
Right,
unravel
the
German
subversive
society as a
Jewish
whole.
element is like, you know, destroying our culture,
Hitler
our
would say-
workforce.
Hitler would say that the German culture and state was under threat of existential destruction because of the subversive nature of the Jewish people in society. That's what he would say. So it's like, you know, it's the exact same thing to just like say, oh, it's an existential threat. Hitler would have said the same thing.
Right.
attacked the Jewish community in Palestine from 1947 on.
That doesn't justify
They were
ethnic
joined.
cleansing,
They were
right?
joined. They
You
were
can't justify a war crime, a crime against humanity.
Ethnic cleansing is not regarded as a war crime by any.
So you're fine with it?
It's not a matter of fine. It's not a happy
I'm trying to
event.
understand.
We're not. I prefer ethnic cleansing of the other to being.
Can you pause it real quick?
massacred.
Yes, ethnic cleansing can be considered a war crime. Definition: the United Nations defines ethnic cleansing as rendering an area ethnically homogenous by using force or intimidation to remove persons of given group from the area. It's a deliberate policy by one ethnic or religious group to remove another group's civilian population from a specific area using violence or terror.
My own people. Yes, sure.
Even if that involves innocent people being driven from their homes and not allowed to come back?
Yes, if you are under
How does that fit with
if
the
you
Zionists
are-
wanted to
if
share the
you-
land?
Because of course the Zionists wanted. No, you're mixing up the times, the chronology. The Zionists were willing to share the land. The Arabs said no. The Arabs attacked them, and from that point on, the Jews, to defend themselves properly.
Why do the Palestinians not have the right to say no?
Right. Why are they forced to say yes? And also, his position is literally, yes, Zionism believes in ethnic cleansing from like 1890 until 1936, and then for like a magical 3-year period, they decided that they wanted to share the land, and then they decided that they couldn't, and they went through a period of intense ethnic cleansing of almost 1 million people. So, like, you know, it just sounds like so ridiculous and convenient for them at this point. What was the other thing that I was going to say? Also, for example, you know, let's take World War II, for example, right? The United States was at war with Japan. While they were at war with Japan, they decided to intern every Japanese American person within the United States under the pretense that they could be a subversive element or traitors. I don't think anybody would agree that it is justified to just take anyone that looks like this, the people that you're in a conflict with, and be like, I don't know, all of you could be disloyal or subversive or traitors. So we're just going to, you know, Stalin did this. And this is one of my biggest criticisms of Stalin, is that when they were at war with Japan, he displaced the Korean population into Siberia because he couldn't trust them as potential Japanese spies. And I think that is absolutely fucking abhorrent. It's the same thing in Palestine. Just because there's Palestinian paramilitaries or Arab irregulars or whoever you're at war with, you can't just be like, hey, everyone that's vaguely Palestinian, you have to get out because we can't trust you. Like, you can't just have a blanket policy of ethnic cleansing of civilians that are of a specific ethnic persuasion.
Right.
Yeah. Correct, Aunt
They would
Smika.
have
They
to-
did hate the Japanese.
Which is hilarious because the Koreans hated the Japanese.
That is correct.
Also correct.
But if you're you know, have like a racist disposition, you're like, I don't know, I can't tell the difference between any of you Asian looking people. You're all gonna have to go to Siberia.
Interesting the USA didn't do that to the Germans, the largest Euro ethnic group in USA.
That is
Actually,
incorrect.
I'm sorry, Baldwin. That did happen.
Oh, did it?
Yeah. Not to the same degree as like ethnic Japanese, but like, yeah, we did. In fact, there are some cases where like they were sterilized, for being German, etc. But like, I don't want to build, German newspapers used to have the second most widespread in the U.S., but they were largely stopped. This is also true. There was a huge campaign. Yep, they're not even just World War I, but even World War II is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the period where, like,
World War I was also when in Guatemala they appropriated German coffee farms because they were in alliance with the United States.
Right.
So maybe it was actually more severe in World War I, actually. But go ahead, Johnny. I apologize. I just wanted to throw.
No, I mean, like the conditions that like the Germans were kept in, or German Americans rather, because like they'd been there for like such a period of time. It's just like, this is ridiculous. But
yeah, and they're less easy to identify because of the concept of whiteness. Like, you know what I mean? Like a person that's of Japanese ethnicity can be easily pointed out in a racist society as a potential subversive, whereas a German person just looks like your average run-of-the-mill white person in 1940s American society.
Yeah. There are definitely reasons German does not get the shine some other European ethnic groups get in the U.S. Well, there was a period where they did.
Drive out Arabs from certain areas from which the Arabs were attacking the Jewish.
So it was a pragmatic thing in the heat of war.
It wasn't ideological, it was pragmatic.
Even though you yourself say that transfer was inevitable and inbuilt into Zionism. Your words.
It depends what you mean by transfer. A transfer
depends what you mean by transfer. You're the one using the euphemism.
It depends. No. It depends what part of the population we're talking about. Total transfer was never any part of Zionist policy.
Partial transfer.
A partial transfer from areas in which the Jews wanted to establish their state in part of Palestine, and from which the Arabs were busy attacking the Jews.
Okay, I want to bring in the panel. Before I do, a lot of talk about whether Zionism is a form of colonialism. If I said to you Zionism is something colonial, what would you say to that?
I would say there's some partial truth in it, but on large it's wrong. It's not a correct interpretation.
Those are Theodore Herzl's words. He wrote a letter to Cecil Rhodes, the founder of Rhodesia in Zimbabwe. He said it's something colonial.
Okay.
So maybe you should take it up with the founder of Zionism.
I can't take it up with Herzl. Okay. Herzl may have said that in order to
he did say
ingratiate. In an effort to ingratiate himself with the great colonizer Rhodes. It's possible. That's not the point. The point is
this is why dog. It was on every bank. It was in every newspaper. It was on every magazine. It was on every library. It was on every courthouse. It was a colony. It has an entire Wikipedia. What are we talking about? I thought we were talking about the video. Are you guys talking about the thing in Germany again? If anyone got articles or something about German internment, I'd be interested. Why would he feel a need to ingratiate himself with a colonizer? Because Israel was a colony.
Who's whispering about Israel?
It still is a colony. Also happened to Italians during World War II. Yes. It's not nearly talked about as much. I think also because, Italians and Germans were inducted into, the whole, social construction of whiteness, whereas, the Japanese still kind of are not, maybe on an international scale, right? They're a little bit more we'll let you sit at the table, but socially it's still kind of I can't get over the whole you look too different thing. But yes, there were internment camps, right? But not nearly as bad as what was done to the Japanese, or Japanese Americans, I should say.
I don't understand, Mehdi. Zionism.
You don't allow me to finish sentences.
I do. Please.
No, you do. You
please finish the sentence.
Continuously interrupt.
Please.
You're trying to do what Trump did to Biden.
Wow, I've never been compared to Trump before. That's the first. But you've actually eaten up more time saying that. So please finish your sentence.
In order to mess up his sentences, Zionism intended to liberate the Jews from the alienation and oppression under which they lived in Eastern Europe, also later Central Europe, Europe by establishing a state of the Jews, with a majority of Jews, with Jews ruling over themselves.
Okay, but you're not escaping the alienation. You're merely applying the alienation to another group of people.
Yeah. That
Like-
don't get to govern themselves.
Right. You are merely like just dropping people of one, like, you know, similar cultural, religious, whatever background, right? And you're just putting them amongst another population where, like, you can impose violence upon them instead of the other way around. But it's not as if that doesn't get traded around. You know what I mean? I just
Right.
like that way he said that. That's just not factual. That's just not what happened.
Exactly.
They ended up in part realizing that dream at the expense of Palestinians. This is correct.
Okay.
This is what happened,
Good.
as it turned out.
We'll end on a point of agreement and bring in our panel. We have
Okay,
Diana Boutou,
good.
Palestinian lawyer in Israel,
Great.
former advisor to the
What do you say?
He just said good. I don't know if you heard the other. All right, good. We'll end there.
PLO. Emmanuel Navon is an international relations lecturer at Tel Aviv University. Daniel Levy is a former Israeli peace negotiator, president of the U.S. Middle East Peace Project. Diana, I'm interested in hearing what you have to say about genocide, because we started the show talking about genocide. Benny very adamantly says it's absurd. There's many definitions. You're a lawyer. What do you make of that?
Look, Benny is exactly what I expect him to be, which is a genocide denier and a genocide apologist. Every human rights organization has been defining this as a genocide. We have the ICJ that has come out and said that there's plausible case for genocide, and yet we're to believe the Israelis, the only people who say that it isn't a genocide. Israel's allowed to be a colonizer. Israel's allowed to do what it pleases, and that Palestinians just have to sit by idly and take it. And this is the fundamental problem with Zionism. But we, Palestinians, are the ones who feel Zionism on our bodies. We've paid for it with our lives. We've paid for it with our land. This attempt to redefine Zionism will go nowhere, because you know, and the world knows, it's a
Hold on, I'm going to bring in all the panel.
It's a colonial.
All right, yeah, he's dead. You got him. Just hang
Emmanuel,
on.
you teach international relations in Israel. Is there a recognition there that a lot of the world governments, allies of Israel, as well as the usual human rights groups, are very critical, at a minimum, of the way that Israel has prosecuted what's going on in Gaza?
Well, first of all, Diana said we're feeling Zionism. You're right, you're feeling it, because the only place in the Middle East where Arabs are free is Israel. And so the freedom that you have.
What does that even mean?
This guy is the worst. Yeah, welcome to this nightmare of this person fucking talking now.
I
don't even know why the fuck do they even need to have a panel, dude. Like, why? This is only a 48-minute long video. Why can't Mehdi and Benny just talk? Why did they have to bring in 3 other people? I'm not really sure.
Why have this audience? Why have like this panel? Why are they doing like a lot?
I would rather just have a back and forth discussion between Mehdi and Benny. That would be my favorite. But
Right. Just give us that. That's what I thought I was clicking, not like this fucking circus of like fucking.
it is quite a circus, yes.
Have Diana is because the only country in the Middle East where there is freedom is the state of Israel, from which you benefit, and you should be thankful for it.
I'm not grateful at all.
Because the only country in the Middle East where Arabs can elect their officials, be elected, be judges at the Supreme Court, be president of a university, the only free country in the Middle East is Israel.
Dan, do you want to respond to that?
I find it staggering that the gentleman to my right is telling the Palestinian citizen of Israel how she is experiencing the reality under which she lives. It's a staggering moment for me. Now, there were different strands to Zionism, okay? There was a cultural Zionism, there was a binational Zionism. This could have gone in different directions. From the perspective of 2024, 75 plus years in, the idea that this is just something benign doesn't match with the reality that has been lived. Now, I would say it's clear what this has meant for Palestinians, but I would argue it's not doing what was written on the tin for Jews either. I don't think either Israeli Jewish or global Jewish safety is best served by the actions we see day in, day out in Gaza.
Would you like to?
It's true. I mean, think about it. Do you think you're more safe as a Jewish person in New Jersey or New York or in Israel today?
Dude,
what do you think you're more
safe? It's not even like a fucking question.
It's not even close, dude.
It's not even fucking close, dude. First of all, if you're Jewish and you live in like just United States in general, right? Unless you're like Orthodox, right? Most people probably
would never even know. Would never even know. Unless you're wearing a yarmulke or the Orthodox garb, no one would even know.
On top of that, you're not going to have to enlist in the middle. You will have to probably do that thing for like the selective services or whatever that like happens for everybody when they turn 18. But you're not getting conscripted. You don't have to go into the military, right? On top of that, there's no like active militarized, not military, because there's only one standing military technically, right? There's only one officially recognized military involved in the conflict, but you don't have to like be conscripted into an ongoing militarized conflict.
Right. And not only that, it kind of lays bare the contradiction of the charge of anti-Semitism, because for some reason here in the United States, you don't see Jewish people being attacked for anti-Semitic reasons very often. It absolutely happens. But it is in terms of like the total population, the instances of it are quite rare. Would you agree with that? Like the average Jewish person will not be literally like attacked or murdered. Like I'm not saying they won't experience anti-Semitism, but
that will definitely happen.
In terms of being physically harmed or murdered for it is quite rare.
Right. You will face the maybe the same. Not like the same, but you will face like the average amount of bigotry from like, the average American that like almost every other marginalized community faces.
Right, exactly.
Unless you're like trans or
if you're in Israel, on the other hand, what I'm trying to add is that it's not just blatant anti-Semitism. The reason that you're going to see this more pronounced within Israel itself is because there is a colonial element. There's things that exist. There's what are they called? Like extringencies? What's the word that I'm looking for? There's other factors, extenuating factors that exist past just Jewish ethnicity or religious association, and that is a colonial element, a displacement element, and a geopolitical element that I think makes it far more dangerous than being Jewish in other places in the world. Extraneous. That's the word. Thank you.
The average Israeli would rather have an Al-Qassam rocket come through their window every day than have their gas pumped pried from their hands. You know what? Like, that's on them, man, right? I live like a king here, and I still get really good bagels, so, joke's on you, motherfucker. These minorities are ungrateful is a familiar take. Actions and reactions cause and effect. Fa and foe. Biden says that dumb shit, too. Yeah, right.
So I think we missed this from Genki. Subversive History should host something similar with a Zionist historian next to a produce store dumpster. Oh, man.
Please. I think there's a misunderstanding here. There is a separation between Israel and the West Bank, Israel and the occupied territory largely populated by the Palestinians and the State of Israel. In Israel itself, there is a rule of law. There is generally equality between the Jews and the Arabs, and you're misrepresenting it when you say that they are persecuted, and he's damn right in what he says, that all the Arab states are dictatorships which do not allow their citizens any freedom. And Israeli Arabs enjoy most of the rights. They may be discriminated against in certain things, but they may enjoy certain rights which Jews do not have. For instance, not serving 3 years, wasting 3 years in the army, for example. Israeli Arabs don't do that.
We don't want to do
no,
yes.
it's fine.
Yes,
I'm pretty sure most Palestinians are desperate to serve in the Israeli military right now.
I'm sure you're right.
Thank you for leaving us from
one should be in pre-1967 Zionism in Israel. It was not a colonial enterprise. In the West Bank, there is a colonizing and colonial framework, which is even apartheid-like in its actual workings. But in pre-1967 Israel, that was not the case. And for the first 100 years or so of Zionism, it wasn't a colonial venture. It wasn't a venture of an extension of an imperial. Let me just define colonialism, since you're so busy defining genocide. Imperialism and colonialism were matched together, in which an empire sent its children to dominate and take over a third world country and exploit its riches and its people. This is not what Israel did until 1967.
Emmanuel, do you agree with Benny that there is a colonial aspect, an apartheid-like aspect to the occupied West Bank?
No. Zionism is a national liberation movement that freed its land from Arab Muslims.
Yes, the national liberation movement of liberating the land from the people that were occupying it. What? That...
Colonialism. How do you think Islam expanded itself from the Arab Peninsula to Indonesia, from Indonesia to Morocco? Not from the Holy Spirit. This was conquest and colonialism.
Okay, we are out of time, and I'm going to give Diana the last word before we go take a break.
Okay, so now we have a Nakba denier and a Nakba apologist, as well as a genocide denier, genocide apologist. The point of the matter is that Palestinians have always paid the price for Israel's colonial adventures. My family hails for hundreds of years from Palestine. And what happened in 1948 was my family was ethnically cleansed from Palestine.
Where?
From Al-Mjadel, never able to return back to their home. My father died unable to return back to his village because of the colonialism that is called Zionism. There is no place for Zionism.
We are way over on time. Daniel, 30 seconds, you want to come in.
What's remarkable to me is we've gone from denying the Nakba, and Benny Morris actually helped get past that, to threatening a second Nakba, and that's the narrative in Israel today, without going through what's most necessary, which is acknowledging and healing and redressing and Palestinians actually getting their rights, because without that, not only will Palestinians never see peace and security and the achievement of freedom, but Jewish Israelis will always live in the knowledge that that wrong will create a blowback and there's no security.
He's not wrong.
For part
Not wrong at all.
Like, there's been zero fucking healing at all. There's been no redressment of any of the harms done. There's not even an admission of harm being done.
Exactly.
Of Head to Head with our special guest Benny Morris. In part 2, we'll be talking about what is happening inside of Israeli society. We'll be talking a bit more about Benny Morris's views, and we'll hear from our, I was going to say patient audience at Conway Hall, but they're not so patient tonight. That's in part 2 of Head to Head. Welcome back to Head on Al Jazeera English. I'm with my guest, Benny Morris, one of Israel's most famous historians. We have a panel of experts, and we have a live audience here in London's Conway Hall, who we will be hearing from shortly. Benny Morris, in part 1 of the show, we argued, you and I, about genocide, about ethnic cleansing, about the Nakba. Can we start part 2, Benny, by agreeing, both of us, on something, that Israel has seen in recent years a pretty serious, severe, brazen shift to the right, some would say far right, with the likes of Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir in the cabinet, a lot of fanatical settlers inciting violence in the occupied West Bank. According to some polls, 60% of Israeli Jews say it's better for there to be segregation between the two societies. 48%, according to one poll a few years ago, supported the expulsion of Palestinian citizens of Israel. What is going on in Israel?
Israel has turned definitely to the right. It's partly to do with demography. More religious people are born, more than secular people. I would say also, unfortunately, more Sephardi people are born than Ashkenazi secular people. I would say that in addition to the demographic shift, which has taken place in the last 20, 30, 40 years, continuous Arab terrorism and Arab reluctance to reach a compromise has also...
The idea that like there's Arab is like specifically Arab terrorism, as if like there are no Arab Israelis, that there is no...
That's why I hate the Arab-Israeli binary, because at the same time when you say, hey, guess what? Israeli society is racist towards Arabs, or if you say that there's an apartheid that exists within Israel, they go, guess what? Actually, this percentage of our population is actually Arab. And every time that you bring up Israeli ethnic cleansing of Arab people, they go, well, guess what? Did you know that the Arab people also ethnically cleansed the Arab Jewish populations? So it's like, it really should not, this binary should not exist. And if you haven't watched our interview with Zachary Foster, I ask him this. I say, how does this exist at the same time where you have this Arab-Israeli binary, when at the same time Israeli society uses their Arab population to prove that they're not racist? The two things are mutually exclusive. They can't exist at the same time.
Right.
Driven Israelis to the right.
You've also been critical of the far right in Israel, as we just heard you say.
I'm very critical.
You've called Netanyahu cowardly and incompetent, but you yourself have been criticized by some on the left, both in Israel and abroad, for your own views. And I just want to get through some of them with you, because you've said what many would say are racist things about Palestinians, Arabs, Muslims. You've called them barbarians. You've said they have no moral inhibitions. You've said they ought to be caged. You've said Palestinian citizens of Israel are a time bomb, a fifth column, the emissary of the enemy.
I got the gist.
I know, but the audience need to hear it.
Okay.
You say you're a liberal in the peace process. A lot of Palestinians would say, how do we make peace with people who say they're liberal Zionists and they think of us in this way?
It's quite a question of quoting out of context, which you are indulging in. Those who blew up buses and restaurants in Israel during the Second Intifada, I'm talking about both Hamas and Fatah terrorists, I called barbarians, and they behaved...
Not just them.
And I did, no, I called them...
So, like, here's the thing. Fatah is, like, the historically, at least, like, the adversary for Hamas.
Right.
So, like, that doesn't even make any sense. Why would, like, you know, the Israelis work with Fatah against Hamas? Why would the Israelis work with Hamas against Fatah if they're so fucking barbarian?
Right. I agree.
Barbarians, and they behaved like barbarians.
You didn't call all Arabs barbarians?
No, I didn't.
You did, actually, in 2004 in Haaretz. You said the Arab world, as it is today, is barbarian.
That's true. The Arab world, I didn't say all Arabs are barbarians. I said the Arab world is barbarian in its behavior.
Well, very significant distinction that you've made there. I'm so happy you clarified that you didn't say all Arabs, that you simply said the Arab world. My apologies. I must be the stupid one. I'm the fucking idiot. I'm the stupid one here. My apologies.
Even the Arab world.
My apologies for conflating those two things. I'm the stupid one.
Have a look at Syria, where the regime killed about 500,000 people in its civil war trying to suppress an uprising. Look at Sudan, where the Arabs are busy killing blacks in Darfur. Look at Libya, where they're killing each other.
Does he know what he just said? Like, does he know how
I'm not sure. I don't know enough about all of these places, but like,
I know that like South Africa and like, you know, New Zealand, a lot of these places have different like terms that are atrocious. Here, but
can I ask you a question? Are the Sudanese people that are carrying out the issues in Darfur, are they Arab against black? I thought Sudan was majority black to begin with. I could be wrong about this. I'm absolutely open to being corrected on this and not understanding the demographics of Sudan.
I'm like,
It says-
I have to look at this because I'm like, I have no idea.
It says Afro-Arabs are 70% of Sudan. I don't know exactly even what that means. I don't know what exactly an Afro-Arab is.
I assume like a, mix between Arab.
But then what is he talking about? You know what I mean? Like what is he talking about? He makes it seem like it's like this like clear distinction between Arabs and black people.
Right. I feel like no matter what, there's like, He
made it seem like a very clear ethnic distinction.
Right. I don't think that I feel like everybody's kind of Afro, unless you're like a Boer. But for the most part, I feel like almost like, a lot of people are some kind of Afro. There's like, Amazigh, right? Like there's
that's in like Libya, like what you also brought up. That would be like Libya.
Yeah, I know that there are many different kinds of people in Africa, but like they're all kind of Afro. I probably sound ridiculous right now. Like,
well, the fact that they're African, they are from the continent of Africa, kind of implies a degree of Afro ethnicity.
Right. From my understanding, Arab is clan, tribe structure, and not a race color. Well, that's the other thing. Is that like, what the fuck is even an Arab? Like, it's the most like kind of like loose sort of.
Yeah. We're on a whole different continent at this point.
Right. Like, whatever. My point is, I don't think that Benny Morris should be using that term if he's trying not to seem bigoted or like a racist person. But
They throw bombs at funeral cortèges. Look at Iraq. They behave like barbarians.
If somebody said to you, and I would say this is anti-Semitic, if somebody said to you the Jews are barbarians, the Jewish world is barbarian, I think you would agree that's anti-Semitic. And if somebody said, well, I'm not being anti-Semitic because I'm just talking about the IDF.
I don't think it would be anti-Semitic. It would be false. That's the point.
You don't think it would be anti-Semitic for me to say
I'm sorry, I hate to say this, but literally everything is anti-Semitic at this point. But somehow making a like sweeping and broad blanket statement about the Jewish world is all of a sudden not anti-Semitic when you have to face the consequences of your own words.
Dude, this is like grandpa logic. This is drunk grandpa at Thanksgiving logic, where it's just like
we're at a place today where in the United States criticizing the state of Israel can be considered anti-Semitic, but somehow in Benny Morris's logic, making a sweeping blanket generalization of the quote-unquote Jewish world, he goes, I don't think that would be anti-Semitic. Nah, I don't think that's anti-Semitic. Like, it's insane. Go ahead, Johnny. What were you going to say about grandpa logic?
It's grandpa logic. It's drunk grandpa at Thanksgiving logic, where it's just like, oh, it makes sense in my fucking, like, Swiss cheese mind. So, what you're saying is actually ridiculous. Like, what?
It does feel like that, yes.
Like, you see this, right? That there's like a disconnect between the things that you're saying.
I don't think he sees that. That's the problem.
Right.
It would be false, not necessarily anti-Semitic.
And when you say the Israeli Arabs are a time bomb, they're a potential fifth column. That's all of them. You didn't say some terrorists.
I said Israel's Arab minority, which identifies in large measure with the Palestinian cause, is in the long historical perspective a potential time bomb. Yes, I would agree with that.
You said they're a potential fifth column.
Or a potential fifth column, yes.
An emissary of the enemy that is among us. This is vicious stuff.
No, I don't know.
What the fuck? This is literally just like taking like the same kind of like anti-Semitic shit you would find on like any fucking Stormfront fucking forum post. Changed like 2 words. Done.
I don't think you can take Benny Morris seriously on almost anything at this point.
No,
like
this is ridiculous. Who's actually thinking that this man is credible? He's not of his right mind anymore.
He's been coasting on the reputation that he received from his original few books that were like very, very good, and he's been coasting that into the new millennium, into the 21st century, and everyone's too afraid to rip the keys out of his hands at this point.
That's a good one.
Elon Pape and Avi Shlaim are 4 times the historian that he is at this point.
Right. With new material of this,
That's my opinion, yeah.
Decade that's still worth reading, and honestly with like, kind of
Yes, Coffee Packs. That's exactly. He was on Destiny's side during the debate with Norm. That is exactly correct.
That is exactly who we are looking at. We'll wait.
Well, I'm sorry, Carpet Packs, that you got an ad immediately as we were responding to what. Please bring your inquiry back to us when you return from ad hell.
Hang on, I can fucking see when it's over.
We're all gonna sit and wait in solidarity
We're
with
just
Carpet.
gonna sit and wait until the ad's over, right? It's only about 1 minute and 30 seconds, I think.
Is this the same guy that was on the debate panel with Mehdi Hasan? First of all, this is Mehdi Hasan. But hey, Maverick, thank you so much for giving Carpe Packs a gifted sub to bring them out of ad hell when they were literally just asking a question. So Mehdi Hasan was on a debate panel years ago with Elon Pape, who is much different than Benny Morris, is actually an adversary of Benny Morris. And then later, he was on a debate panel with Gideon Levy. Both on the topic of is anti-Zionism anti-Semitism, but no, Benny Morris was not a part of either of those discussions. I assume that's what you're talking about. I need adversaries.
Like, I don't think that I don't think he should be invited to any more panels or anything at this point.
No,
like,
if you're going to debate him, I mean, let it rip. That's how I feel.
I guess, but it's just like this debate at this point, right, against Mehdi is just like, what is even the point of this conversation at this point? You know, like, this man is clearly just like mentally not checked in.
His brain has broken throughout the events of the 21st century. Like when it comes to like Hamas and the Second Intifada, there is no objectivity anymore within his mind. He is completely gone.
Yeah. Oh, Hollywood Co. I love that ad. This guy was also in a debate with Norman Finkelstein and Stephen Bonarelli.
Mr. Benelli.
Mr. Botticelli. With your iPad.
You are a fantastic moron. Your imbecility.
Your imbecility knows no bounds. I still like the idea of me and you trying to interview like Norman Finkelstein in his home, and I'm hitting my vape and he's like, please do
Jonathan, that machine in my house, please.
Do not poison my air in my home.
Yo, not another bean stain. Thank you so much for gifting a sub to Hollywood Cote, who I think was also living in ad hell at the time. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate all the love in the community for people that are not subscribed and have to deal with ads, especially when they're participating.
Do not hit that electronic cigarette in my home and poison my air. If you want, you can smoke a real cigarette like a real man.
If not, you can leave.
You can leave the premises.
Dude, you could be 100% right. I don't know every single thing that Mehdi Hasan has done post October 7th. It sounds like you might be describing the is anti-Zionism, anti-Semitism debate that they did in Canada, where Mehdi Hasan was with Gideon Levy against two Zionists. I don't remember the name. Oh, one was Charles Murray. It was Charles Murray and a woman, actually the same woman that was against Mehdi Hasan and Elon Pape in the previous debate.
Yes.
And I could be 100% wrong. There could be another one that you're thinking of that I don't know about. Yeah, we did watch it here. Exactly.
I gotta get you his book on debating.
I literally just bought it.
Did you really?
I literally purchased it while we did. Hold on, I have to show you. I have to show you that I did this. Hold on.
Well, then I need to figure out what I'm gonna get you for your birthday or Christmas or whatever.
Let me make sure that there's none of my. Yeah, I think this is fine. I think. Can you just double check this that there's no like I've looked over it twice now. Can you just double check this that there's no actual information that betrays me?
I will make sure.
You're more of an expense. You're more of a professional at that.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I don't think this has anything.
It just has Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go. Win
does it have-
every argument.
Does it have a date? It doesn't have the date on it, but I swear to God, here, look, I'll send you this.
Arriving Tuesday, August 6th. So,
look, hold on here.
That as like a book stream.
Look what I just sent. Look what I just sent you. Go ahead, pull it up.
All right, chat. This is the timestamp for when he ordered it. I love this.
I was just watching it. I was like, I need that book. I need it. I'm gonna order it right now.
I need to know how I just like he's got to like give away some kind of like technique or something.
But if I read this book, I'm gonna have to start debating people. You know what I mean? I know all of you have been trying to hold me back from entering
I'm done trying to hold you back. I think we're the
depraved ring of online debate. But if I read this book, I think I have to, because what else am I going to do with that information?
Nothing else. And honestly, like I think that it's kind of like I don't know. It's like keeping like a lion caged. It's just not.
I'm an argumentative person.
Yeah. Who are you going to debate? Everyone.
I don't know who wants it. Yeah, but I'll probably start with random chatters. That'll probably be number one, and then maybe I'll move my way up and eventually debate Destiny.
Eventually, we got to get him good. You know, we gotta get him like, you know, eating thunder.
I think I have the knowledge. But I don't have the debate chops. Like I haven't done it enough to get my reps in. I need the rep.
Yeah. I think that, like, you know, we gotta get him some practice.
Have I played Bloomborough? I haven't. I've really just played a little bit of like vintage and stuff like that, but I haven't tried the new set out. I've been watching it. I've actually technically debated Marcus. Me and Marcus had like a 2-hour philosophy debate. It was a very friendly debate, but we were definitely on opposing sides of like the value of philosophy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But I think when you get that, maybe we'll make that into like a little bit of like a book stream, but not really. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Bloomborough looks sick, but you know, I'm still riding the Modern Horizons 3 wave.
Yeah.
Whether you remember it or not is irrelevant. You said it. Their slide into complete Palestinization has made them an emissary of the enemy that is among us.
During the Second Intifada, when there were riots by Israeli Arabs, blocking of roads, etc., they behaved like an emissary of the enemy. This is.
Oh my God! They blocked roads. They blocked roads in an act of civil disobedience. Like, did you hear how the goalposts just changed from like suicide bombings at buses and restaurants to like, oh, they blocked roads? It's like in an act of civil disobedience against occupation. Like, you can't act. In his own words, if you read him about the first Intifada, he says it was a non-violent uprising of Palestine. In his own words, and Norm Finkelstein talks about this.
It depends on context. You keep quoting things without explaining the context.
I'm not sure there is any context for dismissing an entire people as a fifth column.
Nobody is.
Yeah, that's what Stalin did against the Koreans. That's what the United States did against the Japanese. You can't do that. That's my whole point, is that there's no way to just be like, what do we have, like a conflict with Japanese people? Round them up. Round them up. I don't want to parse through each individual one, what they believe. It's really easy if you just take anyone that's vaguely Asian looking and put them in some kind of camp till we figure this out. Like, that is not okay. That's my point.
Right.
Let's talk about
the hippy dippy. Yeah, get me on it. Get me on it. Get me on hippy dippy. I'll go.
Somewhat controversial, many would say. You're not just somebody who said some.
You don't actually want any facts from me or any explanations of anything.
You just explained yourself very well. You said
it's because you're Weasley. It's because you're a Weasley little liar, dude. That's the problem. Your explanations are not good.
Your explanations suck. You like lack any sort of like intellectual or moral consistency. The goalposts are shifting harder than like fucking buoys in the middle of a fucking hurricane. It literally, like, how is anybody supposed to, like, you know, fucking allow you to continue to speak when every other word out of your mouth is just like the most abhorrent fucking thing?
You just want to accuse.
I'm not accusing, actually.
Yes, you
it's
are.
not an accusation, it's a fact.
This isn't really an interview. This is basically blame throwing and an interrogation.
You don't like defending your views?
I don't like defending my views. I'm able to defend my views, but
Okay,
you
then.
come up with these quotations which are out of context.
Oh, that's-
You don't explain the historical context.
Okay, everything.
The audience doesn't understand.
Just
And
read
then-
the entire
and then-
quote to
and
you.
then they
I read the
use- and
entire...
then-
I love when Mehdi is he just kind of says something like sort of under his breath, but it's like loud enough we can hear it, you know, like yeah, sure, whatever. Yeah, sure.
Bro, who is this? Doesn't like to defend their views. Yeah, I mean, like, that's the thing is like I love it when this guy's like, whoa, dude, this is like, what is this? You're like coming with all these quotations of
Right,
things
of
that
my own words. Like,
how dare you bring my own words? And like,
dude, it's not even like, oh, I felt differently at that time. Let me explain to you like what made me
he's
change my
giving him
mind.
the opportunity. He's giving you the opportunity. You're on stage right now. You have the opportunity to
Dude, he's
contextualize
been on
the
stage
thing.
for like the last like 20 fucking
what I'm saying.
years.
He can make the defense right here. I'm giving you the fucking opportunity to do it. I could be on my own show without you just talking shit on you and doing these quotations. Respond.
Right.
Go ahead.
I
Convince
had a
all
family
these people.
member that was killed during the Second Intifada, which
Yeah.
broke my fucking brain, and now I have swallowed the fucking Zionist fucking Kool-Aid. Hook, line, sinker, the entire fisherman is now within me. I am the fisherman. I have not just consumed the fisherman. I have absorbed his identity, right? Like, then it would be like, okay, all right, that makes sense. Yeah, no, like, you know, you suffered like a great traumatic, you know, thing that like changed you irreparably and has made you arguably into a worse human. You know, that's a shame. Thank you for that explanation. Now everything makes sense.
Quote to you,
The
Benny.
word racist, which you
Benny.
used at the beginning when you introduced this
You
subject.
said, yeah, you said when, okay, here's something else you said. You said, we're talking about murder in far larger numbers. It's not a matter of money, referring to Palestinians in Israel. It's the society's nature. Yes, I would say that's a racist comment, to say an entire society has a murderous nature.
During the Second Intifada.
This was said in 2019, Benny, not in the Second Intifada. That's not my fault if you can't remember when you said things. In 2019, you said, we're talking about murder. It's the society's nature.
The murder of who?
The murder rates in Israel. You said Arabs have higher murder rates.
Explain to the audience what we're talking about.
I'm sorry to break it to you. That doesn't get you out of it. You said it's the society's
Let me explain.
Pause it real quick.
Explain what
It's
we're doing.
literally like saying that black people are you know, constitute like a higher murder rate or something like that. Thus, the entirety of the black community is barbarian or whatever he said about that, which is something that no one would accept as not a racist comment. Like, we all understand that like these conflations of like crime statistics and black culture and things like that are just like indelibly racist and take absolutely no consideration to socioeconomic factors. We all understand that. But for some reason, when Benny Morris makes the exact same type of claim about Arab people within Israel, he can just sit here and wiggle his way out of it and say that wasn't actually racist. Exactly,
Murder
Carpet
rates
Packs, yeah.
by Israeli Arabs of their fellow people, basically, not of Jews, but of fellow Arabs, is much, much higher. It's about 100 or 200% higher than the murder rate among Jews. The same applies, incidentally, to the killing of women. The same applies to honor murders, which are called the honor killings, when a woman shows too much leg or looks at the man the wrong way. This is unfortunately inherent in Arab societies in general in the Middle East and among Israeli Arabs as well. That's the context.
Racist.
My problem is there's no context for making
Racist.
sweeping
You
statements.
know that's true.
Let me ask you
You're
this.
a racist.
Let me ask
Is
you
that
this.
true or not?
You are a racist.
We will
Is
bring
it
in.
true?
We will bring in
Not
Diana.
racist. Is it
We will
true?
bring in
You are
Diana in a
a
moment.
racist.
Is it true?
I want to ask one
You
last
are a
question.
racist.
Forget the
through
word
and
racist.
through.
Benny.
Is
You
it
actually
true?
just made a racist
We're talking
comment
about
when
facts.
you said
Benny, I will let Diana respond in a moment. I will let her. You can't tell me that you don't want heckling from the audience and then engage when we're talking. You can't have it both ways. So I'm talking to you. We'll come to the audience.
Okay.
One
I'm
last
heckling the audience.
One last question. You can do.
They never even said
Fuck
that.
up.
We got a production here. This is Al Jazeera, you fucking idiot. Come on, lock in. Act like a professional. Act like a professional and lock in.
I want Mehdi just one time, just to be like, shut the fuck up. Anyways.
what you like. One last question. It's a free country, as they say. Let me ask you this. It's not just the racism that you've been accused of. You've also been accused of warmongering. You just recently wrote a Haaretz column in June where you said Israel should consider nuking Iran to prevent them from acquiring nuclear weapons. Not even Benjamin Netanyahu has said that. You've said it.
Well, he's more responsible. He's a prime minister.
So you're irresponsible.
Yes.
I mean, nuking the entire country.
That is not what's written in the article. You misquote everything you say.
I asked
Almost
you a question.
everything you say.
It was a question.
Okay, I'll say what the context is.
Please.
Is destroying the Iranian nuclear facilities. That's the context.
With nukes.
Yes, with nukes, but not destroying Iran as you.
So the context is.
I only wanted to nuke a portion of Iran. That's the
part
context.
where they are making nuclear weapons, I assume, or just.
And also, Israel is also producing nuclear weapons. So
this man thinks it's reasonable, I guess, or can be explained away that no, I think we should nuke the part of Iran that is making
with a nuclear bomb. By the way, I don't want you to forget that while Johnny's making the rest of the point. Just please keep that committed to memory. That we're talking, the thing that's literally only been used on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That type of bomb. Go ahead, Johnny. Just don't forget that, please.
The part of Iran that is either, I assume, in his mind, making nuclear weapons or a nuclear reactor, any kind of nuclear technology, right? So that, instead of it just being a horrific thing, right, onto it, let's make it more horrific. Let's make the radiation damage, which hang on here a second. Let's right. Let's just open up a little graphic, a little map here, right?
All right, yeah. Let's take a look at this situation here.
Israel, Iran, right? There's only a couple hundred. If you think that radiation can't travel via wind and clouds,
right?
And
well,
things,
that's why. When some I think Israeli politicians decided that maybe they should nuke Gaza, it's hey, size of New Jersey country, that's probably not a great idea.
You want to irradiate the entire region. What?
The earth turns in that direction. Good luck.
It's just yeah, okay. Sorry, I am having my brain broken by the things this man is saying.
Just said I said.
You think dropping a nuke on Iran would have limited...
Not on Iran. Small nuclear bombs can destroy facilities like Natanz.
Small bean nukes.
Small nuclear bombs.
Small bean, very cute little nukes will drop on Iran. You're taking me out of context. I didn't say nukes. I said very small, very innocent little nuclear weapons.
I need to know the level of education this man thinks he has on nuclear weapons. It's giving me Forrest Whitaker eye. I feel like half my face is twitching.
I feel like I drank NyQuil and DayQuil at the same time.
What the fuck?
You know that.
And
it's not to do
you've been advocating this for 15 years, right?
No, I've been advocating an Israeli strike against the Iranian nuclear project because Iran says that its policy is to destroy Israel. If they ever
doesn't have nukes.
If they ever achieve nuclear weaponry, Israel will be in mortal.
But you didn't say that. You said bomb them now. You said in 2008.
No. Now
in 2008,
you're not telling the truth. You know that.
You didn't call for the nuking. You didn't call for a nuclear strike in 2008 on Iran?
No. I didn't.
You wrote
in 2008, I said Israel should destroy the Iranian...
You know Mehdi has the receipts, dude. You already know he has the receipts. You think he asked you that confidently with nothing?
Right.
You think you felt okay just being no, I didn't say that. While Mehdi was giving you this look? Because it's about to come.
Do you think you're gonna get away with it? You should just if Mehdi is saying you did or said something
immediately, dude. Let's hear what happens here.
with a nuclear strike.
No, I didn't say that.
This is my problem, Benny. You keep saying you don't remember.
No, I do.
The New York Times,
no.
July the 18th, 2008, an Israeli nuclear strike to prevent the Iranians from taking the final steps towards getting the bomb is probable.
I didn't say I supported it. I said it's probable.
You said the alternative is letting Tehran have its bomb. It's very clear what you were supporting. Come on, now who's playing word games?
Israel does not have as part of its policy and doesn't announce as its policy the destruction of Iran. But Iran does say that its policy is to destroy Israel, and they are working diligently to get nuclear weapons. And if the Iranians do achieve nuclear weapons, Israel will be finished. That's what the Iranians are aiming at.
They already had it. They already had nukes, and they didn't do that.
Right.
But go ahead.
Tactical nuclear weapons to destroy the Iranian nuclear installations before they achieve nuclear weapponry. It makes sense to me. It may not make sense to you because you're not as
It does not.
It doesn't. It doesn't. It does not. It does not. Nothing you have said in the last 33 minutes has made any sense.
Yeah.
There's no through line here.
Benny Morris's entire historical career is just trying to play cleanup from the dumb shit he said in the past, or the correct things he said in the past that he doesn't believe anymore. It seems like everything is him just trying to be like, no, the context, my words, stop, you don't understand my words. Like, it's like anyone else, like the standard of their own writing. Like, they can't just like elevate over it. And Benny Morris, whether it's the things he wrote back in the day about transfer to now like talking about his extreme racism or willingness to nuke Iran, everything is just a complete misunderstanding. He's just a small bean, a poor guy that no one understands.
There is not even an ideological consistency.
No.
Right? It is like, and I don't mean this in like an ableist way. I mean this in like, definition of the word, like schizophrenic, where it's just like one thing 1 second, another the next. Nothing.
Right. And, if anybody's interested, I did ask Zachary Foster, the Jewish historian of Palestine. Check this out on our YouTube if you want to listen to that interview about Benny Morris. And Zachary Foster agrees with me that you cannot reconcile Benny Morris's writings with his words. They are just completely out of touch with one another.
It's not. It's carpet packs. It's barely even debate, bro. Goalpost moving.
It's delusion. It's delusion.
It's literally, there's not even like an ideological through line. It's just whatever is going to make sense in any given moment. It's like quantum fucking particle physics thought, where it's just like, until you're trying to tie me down, then it's something else. And if you let me go, it'll be something else the next time you ask me.
And Sam, thank you so much for linking that. For anybody that is interested in listening to us interview Zachary Foster, the Jewish historian of Palestine, who's been on the Majority Report, who's been on the Hasan broadcast, who's been on Katie Halper, who's been on Owen Jones, also granted us some time for an interview which he said that we asked the best questions. Check out that link. The best. They were the best questions. Check out that link that Sam just put in there. Hasan Piker. The Hasan broadcast. The same person that was a guest on that came on.
The guy who has a small city population watching him daily.
Right now, as we're speaking.
8 days a week for all the certified freaks.
Yeah. Never heard of him.
I'm a human being, so I care about nuclear weapons.
I don't know what you care about.
Well, you just assumed. Let me go to our panel here. We have Diana Booth.
Didn't even let it go. Didn't even let it go.
One more time.
It's very snippy, but I like it.
I'm a human being, so I care about nuclear weapons.
I don't know what you care about.
Well, you just assumed. Let me go here. We have Diana Boutou, Palestinian lawyer in Israel, former advisor to the PLO. We have Daniel Levy, former Israeli peace negotiator at the U.S. Middle East Project. We have Emmanuel Navon, who is an international relations lecturer at Tel Aviv University. Diana, I've got to bring you in first since we got started earlier. Potential fifth column.
This is exactly the problem, is that he's a racist. He espouses these racist views. That's the problem with Israel. Israel is a society, a country that is based on this idea of Jewish supremacy, and anything that they do or say goes, which means, therefore, that as a Palestinian who lives in that country, who is not enjoying any benefits of so-called democracy, that they get to espouse and tell me how I feel. They get to make statements like we are a fifth column, and they actually treat Palestinians as though they are a fifth column. It's very important, Mehdi, for people to understand that Israel came to us. We didn't immigrate to Israel. Israel's a colonial movement, and as a colonial movement, its aim is to not only get rid of Palestinians, but it's to transform the entire place, to erase and replace.
Okay, Emmanuel, I want to ask you this. Do you recognize the shifts that Benny was agreeing on at the start of this segment about what's happening inside of Israeli society?
Well, allow me to respond to what Diana just said. She's not telling the truth. What she's saying is,
I did not ask you to respond to what she said. I asked you about what I just asked you. Simple directions.
it's not true. First of all, the Jewish country, I mean, there are over 190 states in the world. Most of them are nation states. It's not about supremacy. It is about national self-determination and freedom. Now, we didn't come to you. This is our land.
No, it's not.
This is a Jewish land.
The way that the state was created was
our land. And first of all, when you say we came to you, it's not. I did not interrupt you.
Diana, let him finish his point, Diana.
Okay. First of all, when you say we've been there for hundreds of years, the word Palestine, it's an invention of British colonialism. It was invented in 1920. It did not exist under the Ottoman Empire.
Again,
so when this story starts, it's a colonial invention. So when you say Palestine, and you can't even pronounce
a colonial invention, you know what else is a colonial invention? Israel. Israel. You know that there wasn't an Israel there 50 years prior to when, it was formulated. Like, the time that she's talking about, that there was no nation state of Israel, right? Nobody was saying Israel.
No.
The Ottoman Empire wasn't saying Israel. If that's your criteria, is what the Ottoman Empire was calling that piece of land, it ain't Israel.
If I'm not mistaken, they were even calling Jerusalem Al-Quds.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and Hollywood Cote, this is so important. This is our land for motherfuckers who were in Russia and Long Island. Hungarian, Czechoslovakian, Polish, Russian, Ukrainian. These are the people that settled Israel.
Right. I don't think you can say, like, it's not a colony.
That motherfucker doesn't even sound like Hebrew was his first language.
No.
He's an American guy, I assume, right?
It's probably pretty safe to assume. But even if he was born there, like, I believe that culturally he's more American than largely anything else, right? But fucking, like, you can't say that wasn't a colony. Not anything to do with colonialism when, like, the banks, the courts, the books, right, the town hall, whatever the fuck you want to call it, like the newspaper, all of it has colonial in the name.
Right.
I'm sorry, like you can deny it all you want, but like it's there. The fucking, like, bleach stain of the word colonial on the side of the building is still fucking there.
P in Arabic, that's what we say Philistine, right?
There's no J in Hebrew.
We did not conquer.
All right, yes. Emmanuel, I'm going to bring you back to my question and then move on. What do you make of Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir referring to Arabs in the most dehumanizing race? Are you going to deny that as well?
Like every society, we have our extremists.
Okay.
It's a democracy. I don't agree with them, but we have, like every society, we have our extremists.
And yours are in government.
Yes, well, I didn't vote for this government. I wish they were not in the government.
Okay. Daniel hasn't spoken. Daniel Levy.
You just cut him off right there.
Shut up, you.
Okay, good.
Youth movement and president of the World Junior Jewish Students being pumped with the talking points and the propaganda points. I really think they were more sophisticated, and I may be misremembering this. I genuinely cannot believe that this is what now constitutes an Israeli attempt at defending and putting your best foot forward. But then I look at the reality in Israel today, and of course that's what it should look like, because what's the reality we're living in? And let me take two snapshots. First of all, it's really not that surprising that we've got to this point when you consider the impunity with which the external community and Israel's allies and the West and the US treat Israel, despite the litany, the entire spectrum of violations of international law and of human rights. And yet every time there's an excuse, there's a veto at the United Nations, then there's more arms. And in that respect, don't expect Israelis to come up with better talking points when they don't have to, because you're willing to run cover for them and create completely the wrong incentive structure.
Please respond briefly.
I must protest. You've brought three people in a panel, two of whom are pro-Palestinian, anti-Zionist.
That's the purpose of the panel, yes.
It's supposed to be two against one.
That's the purpose of the panel, yes.
The way you've organized this.
Yes, we did ask you to watch the show before you came here.
I consider myself pro-Jewish,
no, you're not
pro-Palestinian, pro-human. I consider myself...
Okay.
Let me finish.
Please.
That dude is Israeli, by the way. He was a peace negotiator for Israel, by the way. For anybody that's wondering who that guy is that's saying, I'm pro-Palestinian, I'm pro-Jewish, I'm pro-everyone, I'm pro-humanity.
I'm pro-human.
Exactly. He was a peace negotiator in Israel. So that is a Jewish Israeli man, or at least some degree, probably dual citizenship with Israel.
Palestinian propagandist. That's all you've become, just so that you know that.
Let's go around the audience and see where we've got some hands up. We're going to go to gentleman here, third row with the jacket on.
Just if you could say something more from an Israeli perspective.
Johnny, do you have work tomorrow?
No, I don't.
All right, so do you want to let this last 10 minutes run out on this?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Let me just pee real quick. You can play it. I've already watched it, but I'll be right back. I just have to pee.
They face from Hamas as an Islamist movement which is pledged to slaughter all the Jews in Israel. That's what it says in its charter, never revoked charter. If you could explain that in more detail, please.
The Hamas is a small organization with a small army of terrorists. It doesn't represent, in my view, an existential threat to Israel, but as part of the larger Muslim radical Arab world, that part of it, including Iran, together they do represent an existential threat to Israel. Israel is not fighting merely the Hamas, it's fighting the Houthis, it's fighting militias in Syria and Iraq, it's fighting the Hezbollah, orchestrated by the Iranians at the moment, which wants to destroy Israel, yes.
Lady here in the third row on the second.
My question is to Diana or Daniel, because I want an honest and truthful answer. Given the decades-long brutality against the Palestinians by the Israeli government without much regard for international law or consequences, should we have seen the escalation in this genocide coming? And what could be the global implications when states disregard international law to justify and even normalize genocide?
Diana, briefly.
We've gotten to a point in this world where the world tells us that nothing can justify October 7th, and yet everything that Israel has done since October 7th can be justified by October 7th. That's a distorted world, and we have to understand what this occupation has meant. It's been violent from day one. The Nakba was violent, and what we're seeing today is a continuation of that Nakba. For world order to be restored, we need to have a system where all states are held to account, not where we get to have a country that says it's time to bomb Iran because they might have a nuclear weapon. Big secret, Israel has a nuclear weapon too.
Gentleman in the brown jacket and then the gentleman here in the blue jumper.
I know that we're on Al Jazeera, a Qatari station. What do we think about the fact that Qatar has funded Hamas for so long, persecuting Gazan Palestinians? And also, we haven't heard one mention of the 120 hostages still being kept. And what pressure could Qatar be putting on Hamas to release those hostages immediately, regardless of all the rest of this?
Well, Qatar has been supporting the Hamas for at least a decade with money, propaganda, etc., etc. etc., probably using Al Jazeera also in that fashion. This should end. I think normal states shouldn't support what the world regards, or at least the Western world regards uniformly as a terrorist organization. It's true that Hamas is still holding 120 Israeli hostages, women, children, octogenarians, 2-year-olds and whatever. They had 250 in the beginning, now it's been reduced to 120, many of them killed by Hamas people. Many of them killed by Hamas.
And by Israelis.
And by Israelis. Also, Israelis also killed some of the hostages. Hopefully they will be released.
Okay. We hope they will be released. I would just say one thing. Why did the Israeli government prop up Hamas for so long and encourage Qatar to send money to Gaza?
Stupidly. They're not hearing my answer.
I'm just wondering.
So let me answer.
You give a long answer to that.
The answer is that the Israeli government under Netanyahu behaved stupidly, and this was part of the incompetence of Netanyahu.
I don't think it was incompetence.
Good job.
The gentleman here in the blue jumper.
I don't think it was incompetence. I think it was literally the undermining of having what could be a moderate, sensible, and secular Palestinian state. So what we did is we actually propped up the extremist elements to give us a forever enemy that we could never grant a state to the Palestinians.
That we can point to for the rest of the world to be like, see, look.
That's why. Look at them.
This is our existential threat. This is they have always been here.
100%.
They have always behaved like these people do.
Yeah, 100%.
Take his microphone.
I'm Martin Shaw, and I wrote a book called What is Genocide?
Perfect person. What is genocide?
I happen to be here.
Oh, splendid.
I wasn't invited, but...
Because you said it's a war, and there's collateral damage, and that Hamas knew. And that may be true. But, I mean, the real point is that Israel knew, isn't it? That if you bend the rules of war so that 100 people can be killed for one militant, if you do that thousands and thousands of times with 2,000-pound bombs, you know that the whole of Gaza is going to be a ruin. You know that you're going to destroy that society. And that the only way we can understand that in an overall sense is not a series of war crimes. It is one big crime, and I think the name for that is genocide.
Absolutely.
You want to respond to that? Hold on.
Give me 1 second. I just got to go grab my food, but I don't want to miss this.
All right, go ahead. We got 5 minutes left.
All right.
What's going on in chat? Facts. Yeah. I mean, overall, this is a pretty big embarrassment for old Benny Morris here. And you can see it from his indignation. He's like, "What did I just come here for an interrogation?" And it's like, "Yeah, dude, you're a public figure. You're a major historian. We're gonna fucking interrogate you on the things that you say." It's really bad for him. I agree. And this is also coming off the heels of the Destiny, Norm Finkelstein, Muin Rabbani debate, which also I didn't think went great for him. I think it went better for him than this did. I think this is way more of a disaster. This is like Trump at the American Black Journalist Convention levels of like stepping in it. Just like before the guy on his side is a loser. Yeah. Yep, when you support the murdering of people, then yeah, we're going to ask you some fucking questions. Exactly. I was just going to say that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Benny Morris is at a kind of a low right now, in my opinion. I still want to make a YouTube video. I've done a lot of reading of Benny Morris where I find like a bunch of the things that contradicts himself. I would like to turn that into a YouTube video because I don't think anybody's done it yet. Right now, I'm caught up in just so much shit right now. I'm doing the research for the podcast that we're doing weekly. I'm doing it. Still trying to work on the Columbia videos that I have to make video essays out of. I'm still trying to work. I'm preparing for the Gerald Horne interview. You know, there's a lot of things up in the air right now, but that's really one of my long-term goals is to do that as well. His mental health, okay. Did he suffer stroke or something in the last 15 years? Well, he did suffer some kind of a stroke, and that was the second Intifada broke his brain and turned him into an incorrigible racist against Arab people, and specifically Palestinian Arab people. And in addition to that, while Johnny's gone, please, the YouTube. If you guys haven't subscribed to the YouTube, I'm begging you. I'm begging you to subscribe to the YouTube. That's where we upload the podcast. That's where we upload our interviews. We have a Gerald Horn interview coming a week from tomorrow. We have footage from Colombia where we went and gave food donations to the people that were living in the refugee camps of Colombia, the indigenous people. Please, go and subscribe to that YouTube channel because we have a lot of stuff coming. We plan on being very, very active on YouTube. So it would really, really make me happy to see that subscription number go up. All right, you ready?
I think I've already made the point. The Hamas, when it attacked Israel on the 7th of October, knew that Israel would retaliate with bombing and knew that lots of Gazan civilians would die. They were hoping for that because that looks good on Western television images. But they say that killing a lot of Gaza civilians is good because they go to heaven. They become martyrs. So this is
Benny,
allowed.
Benny, can I ask you a question?
Did I say something wrong?
No, I just want to follow your logic here.
Hamas knew that.
I just want to follow your argument is Hamas knew that if they did this, we'd do a genocide, so we did a genocide.
Not genocide, no. You're misusing.
Like they knew that we would come and kill lots of people, so we did. It's a very weird argument.
They knew that Israel would kill lots of Gazans.
They knew that Israel would kill lots of Gazans. Not a great
Yes, they knew that. Going after the Hamas, they knew that lots of Gazan civilians would be killed, and they were happy with this because of international pressure which would result.
Okay, we're running out of time. I want to take a gentleman in the suit. Yes.
Benny Morris, you say that the ICC should issue an arrest warrant against the Israeli Prime Minister and the Israeli War Minister, Yoav Gallant. But on the 9th of October, they imposed a total siege on 2.3 million civilians in Gaza, depriving them of water, medicine, food. That is what they're accused of, starvation as a weapon of war, something that the Syrian and the Russian regimes were accused of. Do you condemn that?
Has anybody died in Gaza of starvation?
Yes.
Pause it. Johnny, can you just Google starvation deaths in Gaza, please? Can you just Google that for me real quick? Because the fact that this guy is some kind of an authority on the situation between Israel and Palestine, and he has no idea that children have literally been dying of starvation within the Gaza Strip. Dozens of children are dead at this point. Okay, so don't even do April 9th. Go to Gaza Strip famine, the Wikipedia page, because that's been updated relatively recently. Go down. No, fuck, hold on. Let me see what it comes up as. I was just looking at this earlier. Here, type in how many people have starved to death in Gaza? Just Google that question. How many people have starved to death in Gaza? Just put that into Google. Okay. What does that say right at the top?
41 plus.
So, why is he even asking that question? And I want you to know, because I've studied this very, very closely. He says the same thing in the debate with Destiny. And you know what? I even extended him undue charitability because I was like, I don't know when this was filmed. Maybe the situation wasn't as dire as it is now. But he is still saying this as of today, saying who's died. It's literally, dude, you could just Google it. There's dozens of people
32 people, including 28 children, had died of malnutrition and dehydration in hospitals in northern Gaza.
But also they say that they don't know. There could be many, many more. They don't have the infrastructure.
That's just the ones that we can confirm from the Gazan Health Ministry.
Exactly. Which is a health ministry that is operating under a complete fucking siege. They're doing their best, but do you think they have statistics for the entirety of Gaza?
No.
They absolutely do not. This is why the land...
It's basically impossible. There's no infrastructure left to be able to do that sort of counting.
Exactly. This is why the Lancet expects that 186,000 people will die by the end of this thing when you take into consideration disease and famine. So, the fact that Benny Morris is either lying or completely ignorant of the fact that this is actually happening, that he'll say this on Al fucking Jazeera, is he should not be taken seriously by anyone. The fact that he doesn't know that this is happening, really, you should just take out anything that he said as an authority.
So I'm saying, I don't think this man deserves to,
People still consider him the top Israeli historian, the foremost Israeli historian.
Right.
They consider him better than Elon Pape. They consider him better than Avi Shlaim. And it's because he toes more of this like moderate, semi-conservative line, whereas Avi Shlaim and Elon Pape are unashamed in their condemnation of what Israel is doing.
Right.
That's why they're considered like less than Benny Morris, who does this like both sides bullshit.
This is total nonsense. The Israeli. You want me to answer?
Yes, I do.
What do you want me to answer?
But I want some evidence. You can't just say things that are false. I'm not going to let you say that.
The Israeli government, I think the ministers debated whether to cut off water, cut off electricity, etc., etc. They eventually resolved not to do that. And though lots of reporters have been saying, and the United Nations, that Gaza is on the verge of starvation, on the verge of famine, etc., etc., that has not happened.
Benny, how do you know that? How do you know that? Hold on, stop heckling. How do you know that, Benny? And please,
I haven't
talk. You don't
read
just have to
any report of anyone dying of
There have been
starvation.
many reports.
I haven't read any.
So that makes it nonsense because you haven't read any.
I haven't heard of anybody
You don't think there's a
dying
famine?
of starvation.
You don't think there's a famine
No,
in
I
northern
think
Gaza?
there's a food problem there. Food is...
A food problem?
Like, I want to like punch my screen. It makes me so mad because literally, you don't have to be an expert, and he's considered an expert. He's been considered a foremost expert on this situation for the past 4 years. And the fact that he doesn't know this, and not only that, he said the same thing during the Lex Friedman debate.
I don't think this man has read a single article.
How easy was it for you to find the fact that over 41 people have starved to death, mostly
less
children?
than a minute. Took me a matter of seconds.
And he's supposed to be an expert, and he has no clue.
I don't think he's read anything. I don't think this man has read a single article. I don't think he's read a single peer-reviewed journal article. I don't think he's read anything.
It's.
I think he's told.
I don't even know what to say about it at this point. Like, to deny that children are starving to death in Gaza is literally at this point, it's becoming tantamount to genocide denial.
It is.
You might as well be a Holocaust denialist if you don't recognize that fact. It is so apparent. It is so. I've been following this as like a recreational thing. This isn't even my fucking job. I don't get paid to write history about this or to comment in Haaretz and shit like that. And I keep up with this to the point that I know people have been dying as a result of starvation in Gaza for months. This has been happening for months at this point. And this guy wants to say this in front of on Al Jazeera, a gigantic platform. It's like it's so infuriating at this point. I'm so upset.
The famine in northern Gaza.
I don't know what the word famine means. There is a food problem. There's a
Do you hear the crowd? Do you hear the crowd? Can we just replay that real quick where he says, I don't know what famine means? And can we just hear the crowd, please? Because that's how I feel. This is my heart.
There are people. Food
Do you
is.
think there's a famine in northern Gaza?
I don't know what the word famine means. There is a food problem.
Oh, just collectively. Oh, come on, dude. Like, even I guarantee you that people in that collective groaning are people that even support him. And they're at this moment being like, dude, please, come on.
What are you doing?
Yeah, you're killing us right now.
There's malnutrition. This I have heard.
But nobody's died. They've all conveniently stayed alive.
As far as I know, nobody has died of starvation in Gaza.
You're a
as far as I know.
I've read quotes from you saying you're a historian. You look at the sources, you find the evidence, and now you're like, I don't know what famine means. I haven't seen anything. I mean, it's a big claims you're making. You should back it up with some evidence.
You should back it up. There you go, Mehdi. Tell me a report in which somebody has died of starvation.
Cindy McCain.
I would have ripped my hair out of my head. I want to pull the hair, and I have nice hair. I'm not going bald. I want to rip it all. I want to rip it all out of my skull because this guy who's supposed to be the foremost authority on the history of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is playing dumb. Like he doesn't know that anyone's fucking starved to death in Gaza because of the siege that's being imposed upon it by Israel. I want to pull the hair out of my head.
I believe him. I believe he hasn't read anything. I believe he has not looked at a single journal article.
And he deserves to get booed by this crowd for what he's doing up there. He deserves to be booed.
Honestly,
he deserves
I don't think he deserves
to be embarrassed.
Even if you are pro-Israeli, right? I think he is a liability at this point. I don't think he has any credibility left. I think that we can look back fondly at his body of work, right?
He has, even Zachary Foster, when we read it, I'll tell you this as someone who's read a lot about this. The Birth of the Palestinian Refugee Crisis is an amazing book. The Border Wars, in my opinion, Benny Morris's book about the border wars that existed between 1949 and 1955 is an indispensable reading of the Israeli-Palestine conflict. Zachary Foster agrees with me. But what Benny Morris is in the 21st century is a deplorable misinterpretation of history. It's somebody who garnered an authority and a reputation for what he wrote that is coasting on that into the 21st century on utter lies and racist conjecture.
Right.
That's Benny Morris. That's Benny Morris.
By the way, chat, because I've had Pat talk my ear off about the border wars. I'm just kidding. I love it when you do that.
I will talk your ear off about it.
I know. But let me explain to chat real quick. It is a book by Benny Morris, right? I don't think it really matters who you're talking about, whether it's Norm Finkelstein or Ilan Pape. I think even, Rashid Khalidi will probably tell you that this is an indispensably important
100%.
book.
I will stand on that Rashid Khalidi would say that.
All right. That even Palestinian historians would tell you The Border Wars by Benny Morris is an indispensably important book that is slept on, and more people, if they really want to learn more about what is happening in Palestine, right, should read.
100% agree. 100% agree.
All right.
But Avi Shlaim has a chapter in his book called Israel Palestine. It's a collection of his writings. He has a chapter in that towards the end called Benny Morris and the Betrayal of History. And in this, Avi Shlaim describes the transformation of Benny Morris as akin to that of having a brain transplant. He describes it as a brain transplant. And this is Avi Shlaim. He's one of literally the best authors on the Israeli-Palestine conflict.
He has a perspective that I don't think you're going to find.
No, it's the most
any of the other major authors that you're going to hear about on this conflict. At least not one that is going to be as
because he is Arab and Israeli at the same time, and British. He has dual.
He's Arab, Jewish,
born in Iraq,
born in the Kingdom of Baghdad, Iraq,
yes.
Right,
and then emigrated to Israel. And then to Britain. So he has a triple perspective on three of the most important nations, or at least three most important regions in terms of Israel.
Understanding this whole thing, or at least the roots of it.
Exactly.
She's the widow.
She said what?
She's the widow of Senator John McCain, the most pro-Israeli senator of my lifetime.
She said what?
She said northern Gaza is a full-blown famine, and that there are women and children in skeletal states there.
Did she say somebody died of starvation? I'm asking.
I want to bang my head against my desk. I want to bang my head against my desk until I can't hear it anymore. That's what I want to do.
Dude.
I want to go to sleep. I want to go to sleep as quickly as possible.
I mean, especially this has got to really fuck with you, because it's are you the kind of person that when you're reading someone's book, you read it in their voice if you've heard it?
Of course. Yeah, of course.
100%. And you've read his books.
I've read Michael Perenni's books, and every time I read a Perenni book, it is in Michael Perenni's voice.
It is in Michael Perenni's voice.
Exactly.
I'm sure that this is talk about top 10 anime betrayals of all time.
Dude, yeah.
To have the indispensable important information, right, that is brought to light in
he's using his powers for evil,
right? He's gone full Saruman the White, fucking you name it. It's hard for me to listen to Parenti and not hear the Yellow Team. I have to highlight the entire book every time it's a Parenti book to make sure like a yellow highlighter, right? Just to make sure it feels and sounds right. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, just highlight the entire thing.
Just highlight the entire thing yellow.
All right, that feels good.
Okay, now it's right. But I'm sure it's gotta it's especially for you, because I know you've read so much of his work. To hear him saying these things is just who scooped out your fucking heart, dog?
Yeah, and listen, I will make this YouTube video. I already have most of the script written. I'm focusing on Colombia right now because I think that is our most engaging and valuable content. The fact that I was on the ground in Colombia on indigenous reservations and at the refugee camps within the countries of displaced indigenous people. That right now is my priority in terms of the video essay, but I promise you I will come out with the video essay about Benny Morris's hypocrisy. I will do that.
I think that like it'll probably happen closer to the next year, right?
I agree. Yeah, just because of everything on my plate right now, I agree.
But yeah, no, I don't think this man deserves any more credibility for the things he wrote in his youth. I agree. His legacy is maxed out at this point, and now it's only degrading. He's only harming his once stellar legacy by everything that he opens his mouth with in the past 25 years. Like to quote Elon Pape.
Go ahead, hit him with it.
I don't know where he comes up with these things.
Nobody knows. And here's another thing. This is what I was going to put in my YouTube video, is that, okay, you have these things called the new historians, the Israeli new historians. It was Sima Flappin, Avi Shlaim, Elon Pape, and Benny Morris. Sima Flappin is dead. He's passed away. So you have only the surviving new Israeli historians, which are considered
he died in like the 80s, right?
80s, exactly, in the 80s. So you have Elon Pape and Avi Shlaim and Benny Morris. Who are the two people that disagree with Benny Morris more than anyone?
Avi Shlaim and Elon Pape.
So Benny Morris exists in a two out of three opposition to the things he believes currently in terms of the authoritative historians on the Israeli-Palestine. Let's bring Norm Finkelstein into the equation. You know, he's not one of the new historians, but, you know, he's a Jewish American person who weighs heavily on this discussion. What does Norm Finkelstein think about Benny Morris?
I think even his debate where one Mr. Bontronelli was president. Exactly. He was like, your own work disproves the things that you're saying.
Which is exactly what Mehdi Hasan is saying right now, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then let's bring another person in this, because I've been focused on Jewish historians of Palestine. And you might not know this offhand. What does Rashid Khalidi think about Benny Morris?
Oh, I'm pretty sure that Rashid Khalidi
you can guess, right?
Disgusted with the man that he has become, but like, you know, impressed by like the work of his youth.
You can take almost every relevant historian on the conflict, and almost all of them seem to have some kind of an issue with Benny Morris. So this man exists on an island, in his opinion. I don't know why he's still regarded as one of the best people on this.
I think literally just because of the books he wrote in his youth. I think it's just because of the books that he wrote in his youth and the fact that he like makes himself widely available for any like media that wants to like have like, you know, well, this is somebody that wrote like, you know, all of these esteemed books, but they never explain. They never, like, especially if they are pro-Zionist, they never explain the fact that like his books that he is acclaimed for are an indictment of Zionism.
Exactly.
Right.
100%.
Like that is why he is acclaimed, not because of anything he's done in his later years, right? That have like literally just been, you know, I don't know.
He wrote Righteous Victims in 2001, which is a book that I thought was great. And Mehdi Hasan, that's the one that he's holding. So even up until 2001, like right before the Second Intifada, is when everything went to shit.
Right. And like I said before, it's like you have had the floor. You have had platform like no other, right? To be able to explain, right? Honestly, I'm almost down to interview Benny Morris and not even talk about anything other than, was it the Second Intifada? Was it the loss of family that caused, like, you know, the shift in your mind, in your heart, in your soul?
Right. Exactly.
Like I would almost, I would have some amount of human empathy for you, that like, you know, you're a human being, right? You were traumatized by this loss, right? And it has, you know, created this monster that you are today, that is willing to say these things. And I truly do think you believe the things that you are saying, no matter how monstrous they are, no matter how much they are an affront to everything that you were and everything that you wrote up until a certain point.
I agree. And we can extend that charitability to Benny Morris, that he went through a traumatic event and he wasn't able to maintain his objectivity after it. But as much as we can extend that charitability to him, we also need to like dethrone him as like the ultimate authority.
No, dude,
That's
no.
what I'm saying. Yeah, we need to dethrone him.
Have
I wasn't
accept the
saying
things that he wrote after.
No. I wasn't saying that you were saying that. I'm saying in what his public perception is currently. The reason why he's even up on here and things like that is because he still has that perception. That's all I was saying.
Right.
Not you
And
specifically.
Red Wizard says, listen, man, some people don't ever want to admit the scumbag they are and can be, so they live haunted. Right? Yeah, sure. I mean, like, look.
Let's wrap this up. We got a minute left.
Yeah, you're right.
Yes, there have been documented cases. Read the newspapers. Read the humanitarian
What you just
agencies.
quoted didn't talk about
You said there was no famine a moment ago.
I didn't say. I said I don't know what famine is.
Well, that's a good get out, and it's at the core of the discussion. Let's take another question. Gentleman in the green jacket's been waiting a while.
Hi, my question is to Benny. I just want to know, if you were Palestinian, right, and you were born in Palestine, would you, given the circumstances, support a Palestinian's right to resistance in the form that they have?
I don't know about the form. I would support Palestinian resistance if I was living under Israeli occupation, yes.
Which is what the Palestinians are.
What? It doesn't even make sense.
Look at his face. Look at his face that you paused it on. Look at the face.
It doesn't even make sense. Like, you can't. What? You can't go 1 minute saying that, like, you know, the Israelis are like a benevolent fucking force for the Palestinians, and then in the next when someone fucking asks you the question, if you were Palestinian, would you support resistance?
He's like, yes, because I'm racist. I'm not Palestinian, so I don't support that. But if I was, I would be racist in that direction.
What?
I don't know who this random guy is in that puff jacket, in that bubble jacket, but he just fucking like laid waste to this whole conversation. Play it. Look, they say more.
Benny, we're out of time. The very interesting question he posed, very interesting answer. I do want to ask about, because I watched a recent discussion you did and you were telling your opponent, you need to have empathy, you need to put yourself in other people's shoes. So let's just continue on, gentlemen's very good question, I thought. I mean, if you were a kid in Gaza right now and you saw your home blown up by the Israeli Air Force, you saw your parents incinerated in front of you.
He looks like he's about to break. He looks like he's about to break.
What's your view of Israel going to be?
It'll probably be very negative, but it might also be negative towards the Hamas who generated this conflict and led to that.
He almost had the chance.
Do you think that's what the kid is thinking?
Sure. You know what? Sure. Right? It might be. But I have a feeling that the kid that's...
Was it a Hamas bomb that landed on my apartment building?
Right. What laid the groundwork for Hamas to even exist?
Israel.
Right. Like what is even creating like the conditions for a Hamas to happen, Benny?
That would be the Israeli occupation.
It boggles the fucking mind.
It does.
When he sees his parents killed by an Israeli bomb.
He might think both things.
What would you think if you were that kid?
Probably I would describe the death of his parents to an Israeli bomb and to the Israelis. But I might, on reflection later, think maybe the Hamas shouldn't have slaughtered so many Israelis on the 7th of October.
Maybe the Israelis should have made Gaza into an open-air prison.
Palestinians in Gaza have been being bombed to death every year before October 7th. This is not when everything started. Everything was not copacetic before October 7th.
Right. Like it wasn't like they had clean drinking water and like, you know, weren't being calorically restricted. I don't even know if calorically is a word, but like it's not like they weren't calorically restricted for over a decade beforehand. It's not like any attempt for them to have any kind of like, they had a fucking airport, Benny, until Israel fucking bombed it. Like they don't have access to the ports. They can't even fish off of like the fucking coast, their own fucking land. They can't even practice their own cultural traditions of fishing. It's like the fucking kafir has a fucking net on it because the design is of a fucking net because they fish.
Exactly. which they're not allowed to do.
Which they're not allowed to do.
Over a certain amount. They get a little bit, but they can't just, they can't just,
when they're not being just like used just like a fucking target practice for a fucking Israeli naval vessel.
We need that area. We need that area to build a pier for aid. You know the pier that's currently floating out to sea because it hasn't been maintained?
It washed up on shore upside down, and then they like flipped it back over, I guess. Like,
yeah, it's still good. Come on.
Still good.
We can bring some aid in. We can bring some aid in on this thing.
All right, get the HIMARS off first.
Yeah. All right, come on. We got 50 seconds left. Let it go.
I'm genuinely asking, is that your talking point, or is that, as a human being, that's how you would feel?
As a human being, I think I would feel anger towards those who had just killed my parents, but I think growing up and on reflection, I might think that the Hamas had led to this. I might
Quite the empathy I was looking for, but we will, I mean, if that's your honest answer, I'll take it.
That's my answer.
I appreciate that. Benny Morris, thank you for joining me on the show today. Thank you to our audience in London's Conway Hall. Thank you to our panel of experts who joined the discussion. That's all we have time for. Thank you for watching at home. Good night.
Gilbo, I think I'm going to need you to clip this one for the YouTube. We might have to make an upload of this one. It felt pretty good. But yeah, I've been on a crusade against Benny Morris the first book I ever bought about Israel-Palestine, Johnny was actually with me. He was actually directly by my side in the Wooden Shoe in Philadelphia on South Street. I bought this book, The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine by Ilan Pappé.
Which I doubted.
And I bought The Wretched of the Earth by Frantz Fanon, which I didn't even know about. Johnny was the one that was like, oh, dude, this. And it was literally off that recommendation that I was like, all right, I'll buy that. Yeah. So this is when I was super getting into everything. But that was my introduction to the Israeli-Palestine conflict was Ilan Pappé. And then I learned about the rivalry with him and Benny Morris. Now I've read Benny Morris's books. Now I've engaged in many different critiques of Benny Morris. And I can say that, you should not take seriously anything this man says after the year 2000.
No, they're your enemies. Don't treat them like that and fight them. And you'll get your freedom. My repertoire is USSR. Be a low style, got thrown out the car. Rise for subversive plots. They'll call you an extremist or subversive or red radical. Rise for subversive plots. Red radical and fight them. Capitalism and democracy, capitalism and democracy are not synonymous. We group us up like ants in a colony. Organize the wealth into a socialist economy. A way of life based off the common needs. And all my comrades is ready, we can spread the scene. And all my comrades is ready, we can spread the scene.